This episode of Limit Break Radio is made possible by our generous Patreon donors, including Varya Kimon of Behemoth, Tara Fug of Hyperion, Toki Anikawa of Sargantanis. Thank you so much for your support. If you want to support Limit Break Radio, visit patreon.com/limitbreakradio.
Coming up this week on Checkpoint Radio, with E3 2018 just a few weeks away, we'll take a look at all of the pre-3 announcements that have already been confirmed to be at E3 2018. Plus, with all the rumors of a new console in development, it makes us ask just where do consoles go from here? That's all coming up on your source for esports and video game discussions, Checkpoint Radio from Westwood One. Join me, Nate, Robbie Norris, and Joe for Checkpoint Radio. Listen on demand Tuesdays at our website at checkpointradio.com.
Do you ever wish for the comfort and privacy of your own home while relieving yourself in a bathroom? We sure do. But until modern indoor plumbing catches up with us, come to the Queen of Clean, Catherine's Latrines. Catherine's Latrines is your #1 stop for your #2 stop. We offer a wide variety of outdoor outhouses for when you need to leave your wide mark on the world. Commence your solo duty with pride and confidence as Catherine's Latrines have step stool adjustments for Lalafell and gaping maw expanders for Rogadin. You'll find yourself dropping the kids off at the blitzball game for hours with a luxurious Catherine's Latrines. For a lean, mean, bean cleaning machine, come to the Queen of Clean, Catherine's Latrines.
Live from Eorzea.
Limit Break with your hosts, Unhero.
Now behold the horror you have wrought.
Kahlo.
I said don't take your clothes off.
Juxtaposition.
I don't get it.
And Mika.
Oh my god.
LimitBreakRadio.com.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Limit Break Radio, episode 161. Appreciate having you guys along. Twitch.tv/Limit Break Radio. You can also download the podcast over at limitbreakradio.com. Joining us today, we've got a special guest host, JoeNeverFails. Joe, welcome back to Limit Break Radio, man. How you doing?
Doing great, brother, man. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. So we're going to be talking about some of our adventures in other MMOs and kind of what those lessons have taught us about FF14's experiences, because we've been doing a direct compare and contrast for, actually, we wanted to do this show a couple of weeks ago, so we've had some additional time to continue playing and contrasting and comparing. So that's what we're going to be talking about today on the show. We want to hear from you. Limit Break Radio on Skype, 810-515-8715, limitbreakradio.com/Discord. We want to hear about the other MMOs that you've played and what you think FF14 could learn from those MMOs. What did they do well? What did they not do well? All key components of today's conversation. That's all coming up today here on Limit Break Radio. We are, of course, live from Eorzea. Let's kick it on over to our Eorzean studios, our freshly redesigned Eorzean studios.
Newly upgraded studios.
Pretty.
I mean, nearly a train wreck, by the way. As we were walking in, Juxta had said to me that as he was building it, he nearly, not even realizing, was like, "Oh, this would look really cool if I put these aquariums inside." Oh wait, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. He almost.
I was gonna put like an aquarium inside the aquarium because I was like putting like different like little dolls on the shelf, and I was gonna move it over there and like make it float in the aquarium, make it look all neat, and be like, oh. and inner.
Love the new dick.
What?
Favorite podcast.
Oh, wow.
My God.
Oh, my God, Juxta.
Oh.
Yeah, that didn't go through.
Nope, Juxta fucked something up. As usual, no more than 5 minutes
now
into the show.
Now I gotta swoop in and I gotta save the day.
Okay, so I did the speaker thing bad. That was turned on, okay? But other things, that's beyond Juxta control. That's not Juxta fault.
No Juxta fault.
Not Juxta fault.
I like how as the more on the hot seat he is, the more his language center
the less
deteriorates.
intelligent he sounds.
Jesus,
because I have a lot of important points to get out, and I don't have time for grammar. All right.
Anyway, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. LimitBreakRadio.com, twitch.tv/LimitBreakRadio. We appreciate having you here. We've got a lot to talk about. We've been doing a lot of prep work for the show, and so we're definitely finally excited to be talking about it. Joe, we're excited to have you here as well.
I'm hyped, man.
I think this is going to be a great conversation because
it is.
FF14, of course, is a game that we all love dearly and want to see improve. And I think that this is a game that takes a lot and has said openly. Yoshi P has even said openly that it takes a lot of its cues from World of Warcraft. But I think
But I
think that there are some other games that they could probably stand to learn some lessons from, both positively and negatively. So we're going to talk about that here today. And of course, we invite your calls. Limit Break Radio on Skype 810-515-8715, limitbreakradio.com/Discord. And I mean, I'm sure we got some news to cover, but before we get into that, I do want to talk about something. Patreon.com/LimitBreakRadio. I want to thank all of you for your support over at Patreon. I am happy to say that we did clear the most recent month at $1,300. So that is very exciting. It's weird. I don't know why
they had to change everything.
Yeah, it doesn't just send me straight to the overview. We're currently sitting at $1,336 at 132 Patreons. So
where's that extra dollar? 1337.
I am excited to report that we will be launching the Let's Be Real podcast. It will be so far a monthly production schedule, and as long as it holds at that 1,300 mark, we're going to try to bring that to you every month. And so far, I think we're trying to do it pretty much where Final Encountercast was on Sundays. Yeah. So you can look forward to that. But we're going to be doing the majority of the planning and the work for that after E3, because on Saturday, Robbie, you and I hop a plane out to California, and we're going to be out covering E3 for the better part of a week.
That's right. And man, let me tell you, we have a packed schedule right now. It's going to be exciting.
We do. So you can make sure you check out our E3 coverage over at checkpointradio.com. We'll have the live blog. We'll also be live streaming when we can. So also twitch.tv/checkpointradio. Make sure you check that out. I think that this is going to be a really, really exciting week of coverage of what's going on out there. We've got a lot more time to spend out there. We're being treated to a lot more interviews and meetings and demos, so that's going to be hugely exciting. And again, a lot of this, all of it really stems from your support over at patreon.com/limitbreakradio. And we want to thank everyone that has so far contributed to that total of $1,336 a month. So thank you so much, guys. We really do appreciate it. We really do appreciate the support. Kala, what do we have in terms of the postcards from Eorzea?
Well, actually, let's see, to 2 more days, because I think it's on the 5th is when everything actually gets processed and whatnot.
Most of the credit cards are all processed by that point.
Yes. So on the 5th, we'll actually be setting out the Juxta card that again was done by Nariko Star, and it's probably the best Juxta will ever look in his entire existence.
That's impossible, because I'm always constantly looking better every day.
And so patrons last month got the Nika card, correct? All right, so we're going to show a little preview there on screen.
Which is also the best that Nika has ever looked.
Dear
It's
God.
amazing. It's so pretty.
My eyes!
Well, yeah, it looks good because it looks like, you know, a Migote.
The goggles,
What?
they
It
do
looks just like my character.
It looks like a Scalia. Let's be honest.
Without the tail.
The tail's like behind him.
Okay, yeah,
Her.
yeah. It. Whatever.
Them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's an incredible tuck job you're doing there, Nika. I gotta say.
Thank you. I tried.
So make sure that if you're donating at the $20 level over at patreon.com/limitbreakradio, you'll receive the Juxta postcard, which is Juxta at the beach, and I'm terrified to see this postcard, but you can see it. You can get it.
It's not offensive. It's not one that you're going to be embarrassed if it shows up at your Christian neighbor's doorstep.
I promise. You know what? Speak for yourself.
Am I not like surrounded by sea cucumbers?
No, you're not.
That's weird.
Anyway, but again, all of this, thanks to your support over at patreon.com/limitbreakradio. Of course, that does help allow us to do things like, you know, throw after parties at FanFest and stuff like that. So if you want to make sure that tradition continues to happen, because we really love doing that, and we've actually got some places in Vegas that we could throw this party at that would, I think, be really incredible.
I got some places in mind already.
Right? Yeah. So make sure that if you've been thinking about supporting the show, or if this is a show that you listen to all the time, patreon.com/limitbreakradio. All right, let's check out what's going on in FF14 news.
This is a Limit Breaking News Update.
All right, it's that time of the week, guys. Yes, Square Enix has added new items to the cash shop. Woo! This time, it is a Mogged theme Orchestrion and 3 Orchestrion rolls. You can now get the orchestral versions of Rise of the White Raven, Revenge Twofold, and Oblivion. That's $15 for the music Mog and $5 for each of the rolls.
What?
Nice!
The 15 should include all of the rolls and the thing.
You know what? That's not a bad idea, Nika. That's probably one of the better ideas that you've had, but...
Thank you.
No.
Excuse me, these are very high-quality, crummy MP3s.
This is insane.
It's a lot of money. You can't even get an iTunes. You don't spend that much for a brand new release for a song on iTunes.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's like $1.99 on iTunes for a song.
Okay,
It's crazy.
But you can't play your
Hashtag cash shop high.
Yes, that's right. Cash Shop High.
And I think
you can't play iTunes songs on your Orchestrion in Final Fantasy 14, so this is a steal.
I also believe that these are not per account; these are per character.
That's right. They're character locked.
Yeah.
What?
Thanks, Square Enix.
Wow.
So you're spending $30 if you want everything.
Yes, $30 for songs that you can't play on your iPod either.
Are you shitting me?
How much does it cost to go to YouTube and play those songs?
Nothing.
Free?
Oh,
Nothing.
Checking.
What's it going to cost each one of us to eat tonight? Like less than $30,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like that's insane.
That's more than the mounts. The mounts are like $20.
I already ate today, so I'm done now. I don't have the money to buy anything else.
I'm just saying, what? Who spends the money on this?
I guarantee there's people that do it though. I guarantee.
I mean, there's whales for every game. I mean, if Star Citizen has taught us nothing, that is the truth of the matter. But I mean, my God.
I mean, especially because they have collectible lists for these things. So it's like if you don't have it, there's those empty slots in your list, and there are those people that can't stand that.
I feel like that's the type of thing where the guys that make this game, they just go, make it $10. Fuck it. Who cares? Because whoever buys it, they're just making money. It doesn't cost any money for them.
But if they made them each $1 or made it all part of the 15 that it costs to buy the Equestrian, I feel like so many more people would buy it, and then so much more money would be made.
I'd feel a bit smarter. I mean, I'd feel like I was getting more of a deal instead of feeling like I'm getting ripped off.
Yeah.
I don't find the need to purchase any of that type of stuff.
Well, me either, but I feel like $1 would be more worth than $5.
Well, actually, no, Nika. $5 is actually more worth than $1. That's how it works.
But if you can get 4 more people to buy at the dollar level than you could at the $5 level for each song, then they make more money.
Except, are you really gonna find 4 more people to buy it at $1? Because the people who's gonna buy this are gonna be like, $1 or $5. They're gonna buy it. Right?
We're never going to see those stats in the census. How many people bought the Orchestrion?
You know, I would actually love to see their cash shop metrics.
Yeah.
No,
it would be really interesting.
It would be fascinating, but I mean, there's no way.
There's
no way.
Spoilers, it's more than their subscription numbers.
I bet it is. I bet it is. I bet they make more money on microtrans than they do subscriptions. That's why they've been supporting it so hard over the last year.
Yeah, every other week they're adding stuff to it. Which
Dude, it's ridiculous the rate that they're adding stuff. They're adding, and I mean, granted, yes, a lot of it is cosmetic. A lot of it is just kind of dumb in nature. Yeah. You know, it's not like game breaking. It's not like, oh, it's so cool. Why didn't they put this into the game? Sort of stuff. It's all kind of like, I don't know, dumb
role-playing glamour.
Yeah, it's mostly cosmetic and fairly harmless. But at the same time, dude, like,
stuff that is cosmetic and fairly harmless still takes as much development time as anything that wouldn't be. So
how quickly we forget about the jump potions. You say it's all. He said mostly fairly harmless.
Fairly harmless.
That's fairly harmless now.
Well, apparently, by Yoshi's own admission, remember, people didn't, at least in North America, didn't buy those as much as they had anticipated them.
Spoilers. Yoshi's a liar.
I mean, for a while after they had put that in, like every dungeon I ran had a you know, like
jumper,
a sprout.
Yeah,
the level 60 sprout.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah,
let's complain about it.
I mean, I think that this is mostly terrible.
Yeah, it is. Just like this next thing, which is the Make It Rain campaign has returned. The rewards this year include 3 new furnishings based on arcade games: Crystal Tower Striker, Monster Toss Machine, and Kavakur Machine.
Wait, can we actually play those in our houses?
I don't know. Go.
I mean, yes.
You play them and get
cool.
MGP in your house?
If you can get MGP in your house and I don't have to go and sit and listen to the obnoxious music that I'm so sick of.
Yes,
really?
Except it's like 1 or 2 MGP like per win type deal.
That's the same as it is in the saucer, though, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Do you actually sit around in the saucer and try and farm MGP that way?
You can listen to your own orchestra music in your own gold saucer in your own house. I want to spend $5, don't you guys?
Well, it's actually good. Like for people I know that have farmed like all the high level MGP things, like you sit there and do it during queues, during little bits of downtime, and like especially because there's a challenge log for just doing a couple of them every week, you get like thousands of MGP that way. It's worth.
Dude, people still care about MGP?
I do. I got the cloud card.
Dude, I only have like 193,000. I've only ever made that much.
I've got like 400, 500 now, and I'm working up to the Fenrir now.
Oh my god!
All right. To be fair, I actually forgot about this because I would have probably bought these and put them in our. Wait, is it June 6th yet? It's not even June 6th yet. All right, never mind. If they cost Gil instead of MGP, then I'll probably buy these and put these in our house.
It's as I say, it's from the actual event.
It's from the event.
So.
There's always that gold saucer event where like all the MGP is bonus and stuff.
Yeah, but do you have to buy these with Gil?
Yeah, see, I
MGP?
guess
I'm pretty sure it's MGP.
For some reason, I assumed that since they were rewards for the event, that you got them in like a quest chain.
I guess it depends because last year's had deals on MGP stuff.
Oh my gosh.
But the reward was like an emote.
Yeah, this is not a reward. It is available during it.
Oh, geez. Okay, great. Ugh. All right, well, moving off of that horrible stuff. Now, the middle of last month, we came across an interesting article, and, you know, Nero had mentioned that our topic today is something that we sort of had in the can for a while. But Twinfinite.net had released a list that was the top 10 MMORPGs ranked by current total active users. Now, they have sort of cited a few different sources based on the different games, so I'm not going to say that these numbers are entirely accurate, but they're sort of ballpark type stuff, right?
I would at least hope that Twinfinite researched these numbers a little bit.
Yeah.
More than what we're researching.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. But this is going to lead us...
don't trust those fly-by-night numbers.
Yeah. So as Nero said, this is going to lead us into our topic today because we're going to talk about FF14 and how other MMOs stack up against them. Obviously, yes, every MMO is different and needs to sort of do their own thing. However, one of the reasons that Yoshi P gave very early on in the redevelopment of 2.0 as to what as to why it was so successful is that they had attributed its success to their philosophy of taking a look at what worked in both Eastern and Western MMOs and sort of weaving those lessons into the game. Now that we are 3 expansions deep for some people, it's starting to get a bit dull,
monotonous.
That's
a little bit,
monotonous.
So we wanted to analyze what some of these MMOs are doing right that maybe FF14 could take some more lessons from.
That's pretty fair. All right, well, let's break down the list.
All right, so number 10 is MapleStory.
I cannot believe that it's still even a part of the conversation.
Actually, an MMO.
2 to 4K users. Yeah,
there's lots of people that play it.
It's a forum game, right?
No. And Nika showing her colors of doing research for the show. No, it's like
no, because I used to play MapleStory. They had.
It's a side-scrolling jumping puzzle MMO, Nika.
There was like
it was browser based, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was browser. But I remember a lot of it had to do with like posting on forums. You'd get gold.
I mean, I'm sure they had forums that helped.
And then I remember that they added.
That was
that's
Gaia.
Oh, I'm thinking of Gaia.
Yeah, MapleStory is like the big anime eyes. You're like a sprite, and you will jump around.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
the game
I feel like I
jump.
downloaded that and didn't get very far.
Probably not. That's why only 2 to 4K people play it.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, at one point, like that was MapleStory was massive.
I mean, because it was free, right?
Yeah, that was a big aspect to it. But
I'm surprised that that's on this list. Then
the fact that you could play it in a browser too.
Well, and with
still 4,000 people that play it is amazing.
That's what I was thinking. Is that I'm shocked that it's even still part of the conversation.
Well, I mean, the Penguin Club goers had to go somewhere.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
Sitting at number 9 is the game that Nika tried out and actually did research for us for today's conversation. That's Tera, which has somewhere between 5 and 15,000 people playing it.
Nika, did you feel like that game was fairly empty when you were playing it?
No, but there's 5 servers only though. But I feel like I could be anywhere. I was in like the newbiest of places, and there was people. Like I saw people everywhere.
Interesting.
Yeah,
and that's a free to play game that's like downloadable like on Steam and
PS4
and PS4. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Xbox One or not, but yeah.
Tera had a much more lively population when it was not on console. Was it
really?
Yeah. I mean, again, that was a game that came out in like 2007, 2008, somewhere around there.
Old?
Yeah, it's older than you think. Yeah.
Yeah.
It says it launched in PC in South Korea in 2011.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Well.
Yeah.
Sitting at number 8 is EVE Online with 35,000 people.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, about that.
That's fair.
I don't think any of us have ever actually spent time with
The only person I know who actively plays this is Kyle.
Yeah.
I went through the character creator one time, then accidentally hit the randomize button, and afterwards I'm like, not doing that again. Uninstalled it. Number 7, Joe's bringing his specialization to us today with Black Desert Online. 20 to 100K people. That actually seems a little lower than what I would have anticipated it being.
Well, that's a fairly large range.
It is too. That's true.
Range.
Yeah.
Joe, how do you feel about the current population of BDO?
It's kind of crazy because like right now it's in flux because there are a lot of people who've been quitting right now. There's like a somewhat exodus because of a lot of different changes that they're very rapidly putting into the game every single week. That's like dramatically changing the the PvP scene of the game.
Oh, so, really?
Yeah, it's kind of like on the downswing of like death, but not dead, not in any way, shape, or form. It's crazy because I've been doing a lot of paying attention. There's a lot of people that are like comparing Bless Steam active players compared to BDO active players on Steam. And they don't really understand that on Bless you can only look at Steam because it's only available on Steam, but BDO it's also like on a live download. You can download it from the website. So I think that there are more people. I probably say that's a fair shot, but I would want more. I'd love to say in an optimistic way, it'd be great to think that there are more people playing, but you got to consider KR, JP, Russia, SEA now, and North America all have and EU have a pretty large player base. I think that there were probably more players than 100K, but that if it was the stats, I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, I mean, I've got to say, I've been tempted by the reasonable price tag on BDO a couple of times.
Out of all the MMOs that I've been thinking about giving a try, Black Desert has been near the top.
Yeah, like $9.99 is such a reasonable buy-in for an MMO.
Yeah.
You know, like that I think is a major selling point right there.
It is. It's part of the incredible business model that is Black Desert Online, and I'm not going to get into the full extent of it, but
we might ask you about it a little bit later. But
yeah, for sure. It is their development team and the people that created BDO understand that about a game. So like there's a lot of people that put out the free to play model up to a certain level cap.
Right.
And BDO says, you want to play it? It's $10. That's all you got to pay.
Yeah. That's totally reasonable.
It's worth
because even at $10, like even if I decide I don't like it, like I don't feel like I have that much skin in the game. You know what I mean? Like I feel like with so many MMOs, it feels like a commitment. You're making a commitment.
It is.
You know, and that's one of the things that, you know, as I've been playing Elder Scrolls Online, a lot of people come into the chat and they ask me about the pricing model and you know, how much a month does it cost to play. That is a huge selling point for you know, whether or not someone is going to get invested in it or not.
Absolutely. It's a MMO gaming is it's like a lifestyle inside of gaming itself. Like you have, like, am I an MMO gamer? Am I an FES gamer? Am I a MOBA gamer? Like, what is it? Like when you say, hey, I'm an MMO gamer, you got to understand, like there's usually a $15 a month price tag,
right?
Plus cash shop,
right?
Like,
right.
That's how you play.
Yeah.
And the more you play, the more you're getting your money's worth.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. I cannot believe number 6.
That this is as high as it is.
This is shocking to me.
RuneScape.
Oh, no, dude. It's
at 100K.
Yeah.
RuneScape's where it's at, bro.
RuneScape still has 100K people.
You can play that on mobile now, too, remember?
And it's super accessible for kids too. Like I remember when one of my cousins was like in middle school, he could sit there and like he would struggle in academics, but he could sit there and tell me all about which magic would level up with this, that, and the other thing. And I was like, wow, this is like this generation of kids. It was pretty amazing to see how into it like a 12-year-old was.
Yeah.
I had a buddy that used to bug me about it every day in stream on Final Fantasy XIV. He was like, dude, when you're playing RuneScape? When you're playing RuneScape? And I was like, man, I'm never playing RuneScape. In my head, I thought it was this old dead game. And I didn't realize it was like more people watched RuneScape than Final Fantasy.
That's crazy.
What am I missing here, dude? It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
I downloaded RuneScape in high school, got past the tutorial, and never logged back in.
Oh man,
yeah.
It's crazy because that's part of history of MMOs.
It is.
That's fair. That's fair.
It is. I mean, like, there's a part of me that still can't believe that Ultima Online is like accessible.
Oh, wow.
That you can still.
Is it?
Oh yeah. You can still log into Ultima Online. They still put out content for it.
Private servers or is it?
No,
is it servers?
No. The official servers. EA runs it now.
He's so confused when you said that.
So
You're like, what?
I mean, you know, take it with a grain of salt. I'm sure that none of the content since EA took it over has been good.
Like $80 to log in. Like.
I'll tell you though, they still have some kind of system to try to recover your account, although it has completely stymied me from trying to be able to bring my account back.
You gotta buy loot boxes and hopefully your password is in one of them. Jesus.
Oh my god, they would do that shit.
All right, dude.
Oh god.
This next one, number 5, I'm not surprised that it's on the list, but I guess I'm surprised it's as high as it is just because I don't hear anything about it anymore. But Lord of the Rings Online apparently sitting around 250K.
Yeah. I don't know if I believe that.
I don't know that I do either.
I
don't
know, man. That's a pretty big number for that game.
But here's the thing. Lord of the Rings has that like built-in dedicated fan base where it's like their whole life.
250 seems really high.
This is literally the first time I've heard anyone say that MMO in like a year and a half, though.
Right? I mean, like, but you gotta understand that there are people out there who have like 14 14 and 16-year-old children who are named Gimli and Legolas. You know what I mean? Those are the people that still play Lord of the Rings online. And I can imagine, you know, like if you've done nothing but read Tolkien since you were 16 and you were born in the 60s, like, sure, I can imagine like that is the game for you. You're locked into that one for life.
All right, our lifeblood here sitting at number 4 with and we talked about this last week on our show when we had a Reddit post that sort of outlined, you know, the various stages of where the subscription base has fluctuated.
Sure.
But at number 4 with 500,000 Final Fantasy XIV Online.
That seems fair.
As like an average.
500K, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably a little bit low. It's probably a little bit low. I'd be really surprised because that's the last three LBRs ago. I came on the show and we talked about active current player base, and it was like 5K, 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 NAEU, JP,
right?
Roughly. And that's like 1.5 million. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah, and like we said, there was a Reddit post that came out a while ago where someone had, I guess they've been taking data from the Lodestone and trying to figure out, like, you know, how many active people have been logging in, and it's fluctuated between like anywhere as low as 600 and I think it peaked at like almost 900K users. So
yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 900K split up 3 ways between NAEU and JP. That's pretty solid. I'd say like that would surprise me if there were less. But 500K,
like the week of a patch, maybe. But I like. Here's my problem: is that you never at any point while playing FF14 feel that 500K or that 750K, that 900K, whatever that number is. You really don't feel it as you traverse the overworld, as you do events, because it's all, you know,
instanced.
Yeah, it's all instanced and it's all character matching, right? Player matching, whatever. I can't think of
matchmaking.
Matchmaking. Thank you. You know what I mean? Like, you never feel like FF14 is as much of an MMO as some of these other games. And I think that's a big strike against.
It's tough because like the only time you see players is when you decide to queue for content.
Right.
That's 4-man, 8-man, 24-man top, 72-man PvP.
And that's never going to change. You know, your perspective is that isn't going to change if there were, you know, 300 people playing or if there were 10 million people playing.
So when do you see when are you going to experience content in Final Fantasy 14? Then there's more players than that. You got hunts, and you got fates.
Yeah.
Large fates like Odin, Kurlinga, stuff like that.
Which even if you have all those people, they don't necessarily want to do that stuff.
And you play it Behemoth, you know what I mean? Like, you do it one time and you're done. You never have to do it again.
Exactly.
That is a part of one of the things that Final Fantasy could do way better. To talk about later on is large, repeatable or designing more actual MMO content for the game.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
Sitting at number 3 with 2.5 million, we're now up into the millions, is Elder Scrolls Online.
And I think you feel every bit of that 2.5 million as you're playing. Like, I constantly...
That doesn't seem high to you?
No, it does. That surprises me, but I know that there's a huge PC base. There's a huge
I know that it has a huge core following for Elder Scrolls in general, and I know that there are very devoted people that play ESO. But I feel like to jump from like maybe 800K with 14 to 2.5 million for Elder Scrolls, I feel like it's a little high.
Well, something to keep
I know there was a big mass exodus of it when it first went the free-to-play pay-to-play thing.
Yes.
And I know that it's been maintaining a pretty solid amount since then, but 2.5 seems...
It brought a lot of people back with its Morrowind expansion, though, didn't it?
Well, that's true.
Not just the Morrowind expansion, but a lot of the add-ons, right? Like, you've got the Thieves Guild add-on and the Dark Brotherhood add-on, which introduced core gameplay aspects from Elder Scrolls, the main series, like the ability to steal, the ability to murder, having a wanted system, so that the guards, you know what I mean, like the guards actually serve a purpose. All of those things, like when you strip those elements out, like I can understand before they had those why that would not have felt like a core Elder Scrolls experience. But now that they have those, I mean, the thing that I am so struck by as I play through Elder Scrolls Online is how much it feels like a meeting right in the middle of an Elder Scrolls game and an MMO. It is literally just an online Elder Scrolls game, and if you know, all the things that you love about Elder Scrolls makes it over to the online version. How often does that happen?
And you know, I feel like early on, back in the 2.0, kind of went away, I think, in Heaven's Ward, though. You know, we talked about how when you do the MSQ, you just feel like you're playing a Final Fantasy game, which is great. And then once you get, you know, to level cap, or once you finish MSQ, then you can join the MMO world that doesn't, I guess, really at this point really exist.
Yeah.
One of the craziest things you got to consider when you talk about ESO is that the game did not release or launch in the condition or shape that it is in right now.
It's very true.
It launched pretty.
One Tamriel was the change that basically allowed a much larger audience to enjoy Elder Scrolls Online. Like, if anybody remembers, ESO used to be very much like BDO, where you'd go to different places in the world and attack different dungeons and attack different mobs for different levels, and you'd have to like traverse a story and go through it level by level by level. And one Tamriel basically unlocked the entire world. All of the mobs were designed to your level.
Yeah, it's pure level scaling. Like, it's
something that World of Warcraft just recently did as well.
Brilliant.
It is, and I gotta echo Joe right here. It is brilliant the way that they make, because here's the thing: there's never a point in this game where I felt like I need to grind anything. I'm just going through and I am playing it like I play every other Elder Scrolls game I've ever played. I'm playing it like I played Skyrim and Morrowind, and that is, I think, the core of what you want out of an Elder Scrolls experience. And then just every kind of once in a while, it's like some other dude shows up and helps me kill things, and it's like you don't even need to group up with people, and the presence of other players is still beneficial, and it's never really even that like it like impedes your experience either.
On top of that, the another thing that you got to realize is you can't talk about ESO without talking about some of the best PvP in an MMO in the world. Period.
See, now I haven't done the PvP at all, and I'm curious to ask you about it. But let's knock out the last two on these lists, and we'll start
jump into it.
Yeah, we'll get real deep into it.
Yep. Number 2 at 3 million is Guild Wars 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and of course
that doesn't seem high.
You know,
no, that's legit. That's
really Guild Wars 100%. Is weird to me. Like I believe it. You know, you buy it once, everything is free from there on out, right? Guild and I know that they
on fire right now.
Yeah, and they just came out, I think, with like their second expansion. But yeah, Guild Wars is very easy to get into, and I think even if you leave it for a while, to just jump right back into it. It's
and they're cleaning house with all of the negative press on Bless. They're really they're taking advantage of that shit big time.
Yeah, and then of course,
oh man, I got a lot to talk about Guild Wars 2.
Oh, definitely. And then of course at number 1, no surprise,
Ragnarok Online.
Yeah.
Ragnarok Online. At 5, at around 5 million is
Bless Online, guys.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.
World of Warcraft.
Well, yeah, of course, World of Warcraft. Yes.
No one's surprised.
Yes, exactly. So, all right, let's get deep into this MMO conversation, because I mean, and I already feel like we've kind of led off a bit with ESO, and again, you know, my main comparison that I was doing between the two games was the quest structure, because. You know, here's how I had gotten to playing ESO in the first place. I had installed a whole bunch of MMOs to play for Extra Life. Didn't get a chance to actually do my Extra Life stream.
Your MMO tour.
But some of the, you know, like before I uninstalled, you know, some of the software, I wanted to check it out. And ESO was one of those where I was like, within 10, 15 minutes of logging in and playing it again, I was like, wow, there's actually something really compelling here adventure that I'm really enjoying and that I want to keep playing. And so I decided to compare that up against Stormblood's quests. They're overworld. I know this is going to be not, but they're overworld quests, right? Not the MSQ, the stuff that is like, you know, sort of clustered around different hamlets in the different zones.
Can you go grab me that scroll right there?
What?
That's the quest. Go hand me that scroll. That's only 3 feet away from me.
Exactly. And so here's what I found is that if you do nothing but questing in ESO, you will have a bajillion hours to play in that game. And if that's the aspect that you like, it's pretty much going to maintain its consistency entirely throughout.
Now, but are the quests compelling enough that you don't get quest fatigue? Because I can tell you already with Tera, there are so many random shitty fetch quests that I got quest fatigue really. but obsession with clearing those stupid exclamation points. So even though I'm so tired of it, I can't stop.
Hang on, Nika, let me ask you a question. You played Skyrim, didn't you?
I have not actually. I know, it was blasphemy. I own Skyrim. Surin is playing Skyrim. I watched him play bits and pieces of it.
So
I own it. I have not played it.
Yeah.
Did you play Morrowind?
No, I haven't played any of those games.
See, because I think it would be really hard to describe because the quest structure mimics the way that other Elder Scrolls games have worked.
Yep.
It's not exactly like your traditional MMO quest. There are a lot of branching storylines and overarching storylines. Like the way that the story in Elder Scrolls works is you find a point on a map and there's like a miniature storyline that happens at that point, right? There's a hamlet and it's under attack by orcs. You clear the orc attack and now the hamlet is safe, but hey, those orcs are also attacking something else in the area.
Or they kidnap someone.
But it builds towards a big bad for the zone that there's an overarching storyline for the zone that each of these smaller quests play into.
Same thing that WoW has been doing very, very good with.
Right.
Wait, when you say by kidnap a character, can they kidnap an NPC that nobody can access until you save them?
Not quite to that level.
Yeah, it's not quite there. But there is like the world definitely changes as you clear quests, right? Like there seems to be two different versions of sections of the map that characters can be going through at any one given time, based on whether or not you've cleared that quest for that particular area. And so, you know, if there's like you're trying to clear the undead out of an area, after you finish, all of the undead will either now be non-aggressive or they're just gone. Like you don't see them on your map placement anymore. So it does very clever ways. It does very clever things to make you feel like you've had a very real, intangible impact in the places that you've been questing. And then there's the overarching MSQ storyline that is, basically ripped out of any other Elder Scrolls game where you start as a prisoner and now you're on a quest to save the world somehow. And it is incredibly loyal to the game structure. Yeah, the Elder Scrolls game structure that they've been so famous for.
The best things that I've analyzed playing Elder Scrolls Online is that the best thing that it does is that it creates a massively multiplayer Elder Scrolls Online experience that you can play at your own pace.
Yes.
If you want to dive into the story, you have way more than you could ever imagine, and small scale, individualized, like specific NPC story, and also overarching 3 different Aldemary, Dominion, Ebonheart, and Daggerfall. You got 3 huge houses. You could play all 3 of them. All of those things exist inside of the game. You got battle that you're familiar with, not as like involved as an Elder Scrolls game, but you've got a battle system that's action combat, and that really brilliant voice acted storyline.
Everything is voice acted. Literally every NPC you talk to is voice acted, and I cannot tell you what that does to my heart. It is
you just
so
dive in
smart,
and you immerse yourself into the game.
Yeah,
because you can let it play itself, and it's not just like well acted. Like you've got actors that are like intense and involved with like cool voices. But
pretty sure Steve Blum is in there as a voice actor
There's
too.
So many good voice actors.
Oh my God!
But you also have that beautiful, like really playful humor in the game, where like the chicks will joke around or flirt with you, or like you've got that one sneaky thief that always is trying to get away with something. Like, it's really entertaining. It's very good.
It is, and it's and again, it's loyal to an Elder Scrolls experience, right? It's like the creators ask themselves, okay, like with every item that they put into the game or every quest that they put into the game, like what makes this quantifiably an Elder Scrolls experience, and I felt that at every level of the game so far, and I really enjoy that.
One of the biggest strengths of that too, which again World of Warcraft does it as well, they don't have all the voice acting, which I would think would be cool, but once you finish questing in an area, whether it's the zone itself or just a small subset of the zone, it feels changed because of your presence, you know, specifically with the recent well, I don't think it's recent at this point, but the most recent update, which was adding Argus. You know, when you first go there, this is a planet that has been ruled by demons since ever, just embroiled in war and turmoil, and you are essentially trying to spearhead like an offensive front and like establish a foothold here. So as you go through these quest chains, what used to just be a cave where demons were infested, once you finish it now is your base of operations, you know. And then as you go from point to point to point, you can watch this story unfold, and now you have new places to spearhead this offensive against them.
It's interesting.
Last two things you gotta talk about ESO are one PvE instance, which is like the world boss type exploration hunts that they have in the world. Like you can travel the entire map and find like these skulls that turn into different level boss instances, not necessarily a boss, but like you can go out there and fight them with multiple people, or if you have strong enough gear, you can do it by yourself.
Right.
Which adds to this beautiful adventure aspect of the game where you can just go out and journey through the world and experience the world for what it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the dungeoning, different levels of dungeoning, PvE. It has raids, which is crazy. A lot of people don't even associate ESO with raids because of how popular the PvP is.
I've never done a dungeon or a raid that required me to group up with people. Like I've never done any of those.
Really, really good. Like they actually have fun content where tanks tank and healers heal, and you know what I mean, and the DPS. It's really cool. You don't see it a lot because it's not one of the things that you really think the game is known for.
Well, not just that, but I mean, like honestly, the way that you build your class seems inherently counter towards the trinity.
Trinity.
Yeah. And that's one of the, I think that's actually one of the coolest aspects about ESO.
Absolutely. Oh my God. The speccing in ESO is so good. It's so nice because you can customize every single aspect of your character, from the skills to the specialities to the moves that you want them to have to the weapons that you use to the class, the race.
That is where FF14 could pull from for sure. Like, I mean, they don't even have the stat specking in 14 anymore. They're like, yep, that didn't work. No. Scrap that.
If you're a ninja, you're the same as every other ninja that ever existed.
Yeah.
You have ninja stats.
and honestly though, like it is one of the coolest things and the most malleable parts of ESO. Now I do want to do my comparison to FF14's questing system, because FF14's quests, there is a certain detachment that I have with the quests that I do in Eorzea. The MSQ is very specifically crafted, but the quests really feel like they're just kind of throwaway, right? Like I don't feel like I've ever really learned more about the world or anything meaningful through a quest. Usually that stuff is reserved for the MSQ. So you know if you do the MSQ, you're getting all of the pertinent information or all of the juicy stuff. And then there's really like with
14, you know, if you click on it and the quest log thing has a picture at the top, you know it's got some lore.
It's good.
If there's no picture
like
at all,
a little bit of lore.
random.
Like that's not even necessarily 100% true. I'm thinking of the Ruby C quests that they have you do, where you're helping a dude like sharpen up his fishing skills. That shit, I read every iota of it, and after it was done, I was like, I want to log off this game and never log back in. I was actively fucking angry because it didn't serve a purpose. He was sad. Oh, I'm gonna have to leave the village. Oh, I'm so sad. Boo fucking who. I don't care about any of these people. The story doesn't make me care. And I thought, like, I was starting to think, like, that's just me, right? Like, that's just cynical asshole Aniro. But as I'm going through ESO, the way that the story is told through these quests makes me give a shit about absolutely everything that I'm doing. There's every once in a while, every great once in a while, I'll hit a quest where I'm like, this is dragging a little bit, but they're so like they're, I don't know, they're so, you move through them so quickly that it's like it almost doesn't matter, right? Like if you hit one that's like not your thing, in 10 minutes you're going to be on to your next activity, and it's not really going to matter, right?
The only thing that I would say in argument or like in difference to that is that if you played as much ESO as you have Final Fantasy, you'd analyze the pattern of the story, which it does get to over a long time. And that's one of the biggest detriments to all MMOs. That's not something that's specific to Final Fantasy 14 or ESO or Black Desert Online. Well, Black Desert Online has no fucking story no matter what. So that's one separate thing. But like you do realize the repetition. I think one of the things that's tough about Final Fantasy 14's story quests is that it's fluff. It's that you do not get anything from it, but flavor text. Yeah. And I don't ever want to detract from what that is, but that is part of like the Final Fantasy universe where you do have those silly stories and you do learn about this other stuff. It'd be nice if that served a purpose. Right. And I hate to say this type of thing because I'm Facebook friends with Michael Christopher Koji Fox and I don't want him to be mad at me, but like the guys that put that work into the localization and they make those stories and they write those stories, like they put a lot of passion and work into them, but they are not as appreciated by the audience of the subscribing populace of Final Fantasy 14 as Elder Scrolls Online, because it is not as engaging. Like there's this type of intensity that you experience when you're playing an Elder Scrolls story. Like you're talking to this dude, you're talking to this raptor, you know what I mean? You're talking to this orc, and you're just there. You're listening to every freaking word that he's saying. He's like, okay, now I gotta go save this thing over here. You know what I mean? And you're like, okay, let's go.
And I think, you know what, I do think that, you know, voice acting plays a very big role in that. Absolutely. Right? You know,
14 doesn't even voice act all of its MSQ. Like, what the fuck?
I mean,
like, come on, at least voice every MSQ cutscene. At least.
Except they can't because they add so much frivolous text to all of their MSQ.
And that's part of it. That's part of it is sort of the padding that it's like,
it's fluff.
It is. Why does it take like 3 dialogue bubbles to express one thought?
Okay, but guys, what about the fact that I'm sure that ESO probably makes and has so much more money because that's a big budget thing, right? And I mean, come on, FF14 has such a small team, and you know.
I honestly don't know if that's even like a fair assessment to make, because it might be. I don't know how much you've spent, and I couldn't say one or the other, but like it's a difference in the writing. It's a difference in like, here we go, guys. I'm on a quest to save the world. I'm on a quest to save the world from this evil bad guy. I need to fight this evil bad guy with the sword of truth, and that's why we're on a quest to save the world. And let me go do that quest now.
Here's what it is. Like, I feel like there's a fundamental question that has to lie at the heart of every quest chain, and that is, why is this happening in this world? Why is this important to the character? And a lot of times that's just not not asked. It's like a foregone conclusion. We have to program a quest in here, and it's you know, like, and I understand that there's only a limited amount of things that you can send people on a quest to do. Like there's, you know, you can go to a point, click a point, or fight a thing and then come back, right? Like those are generally the way that most MMO quests operate, and there's a limited amount of things that you can have people doing inside the world. But in the way that you kind of set it up and you know, make the appeal to the player as to why they should care, like that I think is the question that's not getting asked often enough.
It's just not all of the side quests aren't as involved or anywhere near the main line of the story in Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah.
They're just such like non sequiturs.
No, they don't give you any agency. You're the Warrior of Light. You're going to do these things because it's a game and that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, but why is the Warrior of Light helping all these fucking Moogles?
Thank you.
Why?
Yes. No.
Why?
XP.
That exactly, like that is it's like that's the question that never got asked during that. Like why are we helping the Moogles? Does it really fucking matter?
And I think that's the problem with the storytelling, again, making our character like the one chosen all godly being, because like the player obviously needs to be doing quests, but if we are this like true epic famous chosen one, we wouldn't be doing them.
And again,
so it really has that contradiction going on that they're having trouble between the storytelling and the MMO aspect of the game.
And again, but more powerful. Like we're more and more powerful. We're not
right.
Like, it's not going the other way.
Well, and I think again that's another one of the strengths to ESO's storytelling is that your reputation feels like your own, right? When people encounter you in the world, it's not like they don't reference what you've done in the MSQ because there's really no way for those characters to have knowledge of that. But if you've cleared, you know, a couple of quests on the map, they'll be like, "Oh, you're the hero from Eastmarch. You helped them out. That's really cool." And that I think is also another really important aspect to ask is like how are characters being informed of a lot of the things that are happening in the world? I don't think that that's something that's even been touched on.
Well, which I think that's why we did actually praise that aspect of Stormblood on launch, because the characters because the characters in Doma and Alamigo didn't necessarily know who we are. So when we joined them and we helped with the nod, I'm like, they didn't give two shits who we were. And like we actually did praise about how it did feel like we were just one of the mass rather than the chosen one. But then that quickly, as soon as we kill Xenos, it's like now we're the chosen one all over again.
And that's just at kickoff. And in the MSQ, of course, that's the easy way to do it. You put one line at the beginning where, you know, it's like, oh yeah, look, you may be hot shit back where you're from, but over here, no. Yeah. Like it's one line, big fucking deal. Like, I don't know why. I mean, yes, we did praise it to start off with, but, you know, sort of when you look back and you're looking at the bigger picture overall, and especially, you know, with the way that you're talking about how they really make the world feel alive in Elder Scrolls Online, it seems like it was really just like, oh yeah, okay, here you go, blah 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 blah. They talked about you. You happy? Let's get on with not creating content.
Yeah,
it's a redundant theme of the dialogue is to always talk to the hero of light and the warrior of light in the same way. Oh, you're this guy. Oh, you must be this. It's like you see it, Pat. This is okay. So two things, real quick, but in an MMO, if you're talking about engagement and the way that an MMO engages a consumer base or a populace or a player base, you got to talk about what keeps them coming back and what keeps them playing. And the things that ESO does really well, what keeps them playing is the story that you can play forever. But what keeps them coming back is the obviously like new raids and new storyline. But what keeps them playing also is PvP. Final Fantasy XIV does not have that thing that keeps you playing, which turns it into, in essence, one of the best PvE theme park MMOs in the world, where you do come back for more story and you do come back for more raids, but you can't. There is nothing that keeps you playing once you've completed the new content,
right?
And that's why people. I feel like a lot of people have realized the distribution, the new content schedule, and they go, it's all more of the same. And the biggest changes that we've gotten have been with the battle system.
Yeah.
Every expansion but it's still the same schedule every expansion, and that gets old to the player base.
100%, man. I can't agree with you more on that. And I'm really hoping that, you know, one of the things that the next expansion includes is not tearing down the battle system again.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's just a waste of development time, you know? And I understand that you've got to address ability bloat in some form or fashion, but I at this point, you know, like, I think that the level cap is actively hurting the development of this game.
You know, on that subject, because I think saying tearing down the battle system is giving them way too much credit for what they did. Yeah. They definitely use that as, like, you know, this big marketing point for the new expansion, right? Redesigning, but all they did is what World of Warcraft, for example, does every single expansion as part of maintenance, just so that the gameplay doesn't get over bloated. That's like something that from here on out I kind of expect of an MMO development team. If you're coming out with a new expansion with a new level cap, new moves, new whatever, part of cleaning house is to go through and saying, okay, what
accuracy stat sucks, let's get rid of that.
Right, what here is bloat? What do we not actually need? What can we cut back on that is just it's unnecessary?
Yeah,
it's really well said in the point that you're making, because like that was presented to the populace and the population of the world, and not just the Final Fantasy players, but also new players as this brand new thing. And in essence, it wasn't really all of that. It was this difference in advertising to the actual reality of it.
Yeah,
and that is by itself, I think, one of the biggest innate problems in all MMOs. And I could go off for an hour right now about how badly that's killing Bless. But oh my God, dude.
we could talk for hours about what's killing Bless. But I think that one of the problems, and Robbie, I think that or Kahlo, you hit the nail on the head here, is that this is a normal thing that most MMOs do, and they don't make it a main marketing point. And the fact that it was like, oh, the new expansion is going to have this improved battle system. It's like, well, you know, like that's like, isn't that normal? Like, we're starting to hype up normal stuff that MMO development is supposed to do in the course of running an MMO, and it's like, why should we be praising Square-Enix for doing their job? You know, like,
one of the things that I've noticed recently with WoW, but when I look back through the history of it, they've been doing it for a while, is things that they feel don't augment the experience or aren't adding to the fun, they will straight up cut. There was a system they used to have, I forget what it was called, but let's say you have a piece of gear that had crit on it and haste was your stronger stat. You could actually go and turn some of that crit into haste, right? So it sort of made it so that some gear that may not be as useful to you now could be a little bit more useful, right? It was a super cool and interesting thing that they did, but afterwards they kind of realized it's overcomplicating things. They completely cut that out of the game, or they've done away with entire professions before that. They kind of realized, like, you know what, this is probably just more work and more number crunching for players, and that's not really as fun.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about WoW here a little bit, since we've started to move into it. Kahlo, what was the comparison that you did, you know, comparing WoW to FF14?
Yeah, when I recently came back to Legion, one of the first things that I did that has really stuck out into my mind since then is actually now considered old content. I think it was like 7.1. It was the death of Chromie, who's the Bronze Dragonflight leader. They help, they're like the stewards of time. She comes to you and she's like, yeah, someone assassinated me in the future and I died where I wasn't supposed to die. So you get thrown into this scenario, which is very similar to like what a dungeon is. You have 15 minutes to complete it, and I'm like, all right, this shouldn't be too hard. You go and you start to investigate one part of it and then realize, okay, now that I've figured out what I've done, maybe I can do it in the 15-minute time limit. But then you realize you have to make another investigation into all 4 dragon shrines. And then it ends up evolving into having to stop 8 different assassinations, all within the same 15-minute period. Every time you go in, you learn something new. You get new tools to help yourself deal with it. And even once you get to the point where you should be able to do this speed run, it's still incredibly difficult. And the way that this one event evolved into something bigger that actually takes skill and isn't just go here and do this. Like, I look at dungeons that take 15 minutes in Final Fantasy XIV, right?
Right.
Once you do it the one time, That is every single run of that dungeon you will ever do from now until the end of eternity. And having done just this Death of Chromie scenario just 1 or 2, 3 times, it's already changed drastically. And the idea that you could go in and have an event just change like that, and the more skilled you are, the better you get at it, it actually felt like, well, why doesn't anything, first of all, in FF14 compare to this? And I don't even know if there's anything in any other MMOs that sort of feel like that. Besides, I mean, dungeons. You go into instances, you complete it, and it's never really changed in that same way.
Right. I mean, is it something that FF14 could apply to their dungeon system in a reasonable way?
Looking at the stuff that they've developed up to this point, probably not.
I think 14 could easily do like a mythic style dungeon where each time you repeat it, it gets harder until you lose. Like, how is that? Would not be that hard to implement.
See, even the mythic style dungeon, that's something that yes, they could easily do. The idea that every time you go in, numbers start to scale, adding in the
but that would be so easy, yet they just don't, and I don't get it.
I mean, at that point, I think that would be just blatantly ripping off World of Warcraft.
I mean, it's not like they haven't
but
done it
there are ways to implement stuff like that, though, and I don't know.
I think that one of the toughest things that I've analyzed about Final Fantasy in the last 4 years is that, like, they are unreasonably safe in all of the development.
Yes,
everything.
Safe is the best. It's all
the,
there.
Plug and go modules. Yeah, the dungeons are dungeons. The raids are raids. That's the only time they'll allow people to call it hard or challenging, when people like want it. So that's the only thing that's really difficult. I honestly thought that Palace of the Dead was going to be so much more fun than what it was in development. When we were talking about it, when we talked about the advent of Palace of the Dead, 100-level dungeon in this game that got different, it was randomized floors. I didn't think that it was going to be this repeatable, spammable leveling thing.
Yeah.
3 months later.
I'm hoping, though, that is a good base level for what the next deep dungeon is going to be, and we won't see that, unfortunately, until...
Okay, stop.
It's going to be better.
My next point with WoW. Every expansion, again, they take a look at what worked, what didn't work, and they will straight up prune and cut stuff off and add new stuff in. The artifact system, which we've done entire episodes on, was so freaking cool. They're doing away with it because there are aspects of it that they look at and they're like, all right, you know what? Players didn't really like that. How can we make this more fun? When has Square-Enix ever done that?
Yeah, well said. You could make this game enjoyable, like 90% more enjoyable to the new player, if you streamlined the first 150 story quests, and they'll never do it. If you streamlined the relic system, if you streamlined, like, it's crazy. It's well said, dude. Well said, man. Oh man,
I think it's frustrating because, you know, there's so many opportunities that Square Enix could take to make this game better. But you're right, the safety that they've built into all of their content, you know, it's the safety part of it is the monotonous part, right? Yep, and it almost just feels like, just try some shit, just try it. I think that's what was so refreshing about Eureka, at least in in the first couple of weeks, because it felt something like it was really doing something different than 99% of the of all of the other content in FF14, and just the fact that they would be open to trying something new was exciting. And,
absolutely.
And of course, after 3-4 weeks, yes, it got monotonous. Yes, people dropped off of it, and it's pretty barren at the moment. We'll see what Pagos ends up looking like. But I think that it 3 expansions in is not the point where you want to still be playing it safe with your MMO. At some point, you've got to kind of take the training wheels off for your audience,
for yourself.
As creators, yes, but also for your audience, to make to make it feel like this is really worth investing in long term.
I think one of the toughest things that the Final Fantasy XIV development is experiencing, and especially with Yoshi P, is that, like, his job was to come in and fix and not ripple the pond too much. Like, he had to come in and save the game and then just maintain enough. So I can understand. I understand the perspective why, because you dig Square-Enix out of the hole that Final Fantasy 14 1.0 vanilla dug itself, and then it's like, okay, let's just maintain this MMO as a business as long as we can, and then whatever happens, you know. But that is like the cookie cutter generic.
Oh, cookie cutter! Remember that term, guys?
Yeah. It is the cookie cutter generic life of every single MMO. It comes out, fun concepts, devs do their best to adapt. Overall, people get tired of it and move on to something new. Like, what can we do to maintain cash shop in the meantime? What can we do to maintain subscriptions in the meantime? Re-engagement campaign, let's get people back in. Like, you see it in every single freaking video game, man.
Yeah.
But what would be lovely is just games taking shots and saying, hey, let's make a brand new something that nobody's ever seen before. But the toughest thing about the business of MMOs is that nobody's in the business of taking chances. They're in the business of keeping subs.
Well, and it seems like every other MMO kind of has its hook where it's been adventurous in one area, right? Like ESO, ESO seems to have its hook in PvP, right? Like, you know, you've got quests that Bethesda is kind of known for, right? Like, that's the thumbprint of the series. But then what do you do to kind of like make your MMO different from other MMOs? And for ESO, it was really PvP that they kind of hung their hat on.
Cyrodiil, oh my gosh, large-scale sieging PvP goes on 24 hours a day. You've got some of the smaller scale Imperial City, and then you've got the 4v4v4 Battleground in the new Morrowind expansion. That's the thing. That's the thing that people can always play. That's like that. What's going to take the place of playing a Fortnite game inside of the MMO that you're already actively subscribed to. I'm keeping it real, dude. It engages the 12-year-old with ADD. It says, hey, I want to play a game for 15 minutes instead of doing the same dungeon I've done 50 times. I'm going to go do a PvP match.
Yeah.
And, oh my gosh, man! Like, Elder Scrolls does a lot because it's not just the PvP that it's known for. It is actually engaging Elder Scrolls storyline plus voice acting and PvP.
Absolutely. Hey, let's go to our phone lines and talk to Strife, who wants to talk about WoW versus FF14. Strife, what's going on, man?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for calling.
Hey, dude.
All right.
That sounded very disdainful, Nico.
Oh my gosh.
No, I like Strife. I miss Strife.
Whoa, shots fired.
Oh, Strife, I just wanted to, by the way, just really quick, thank you and say I had a lot of fun the other day when we were doing that casual raid for Antorus the other day in World of Warcraft. So thanks for that, by the way.
Yeah, no problem, man. It's a good time.
So what's up?
All right, so basically, kind of to expand a bit about what you guys were talking about earlier, and Nero, you've been talking about how 14 is very inflexible, and I agree. And, you know, Nika, you're saying, well, I don't see why they couldn't just, throw Mythic Plus into this system. I think there's something you're missing there. Basically, when it comes to the way dungeons are designed in WoW versus 14, there's something fundamental there. Did you know that almost every raid in FF14, you can go find a chart online for exactly which second every mechanic occurs?
Really? It's that pattern?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Ugh.
I have not been able to find that for any fight in WoW for the last 3 expansions.
I don't know if that's true, man. That's really difficult to predict RNG based mechanics in the last 2 tiers of Stormblood.
Yes,
but the thing is that the RNG mechanics that exist are still scripted to be like 1 of 4 RNG. So it's like it could be this or this or this, but if it's this, then this is what's going to follow it. Like it's scripted RNG too.
Okay,
it's very
WoW is not like I've never raided in WoW, so I wouldn't be able to say any otherwise. But
basically, it comes down to there's a lot more breakpoints based on health percentages in WoW, where if your DPS is good enough, you can break the mechanics from happening. You can transition to another phase early and things like that.
Final Fantasy has that also.
Yeah, it's the same.
Right, but the difference is that there's a lot more mechanics that may or may not happen. That it's RNG, you roll the dice, whereas every time I've done a raid in 14, it's felt incredibly rigid. And this isn't just the raids, this transitions down to the dungeons, which, as you know, don't really have much difficulty. Mm-hmm. So what would happen is if they tried to do a Mythic Plus system, which is basically let's add 2 RNG mechanics or 3 and put a timer on it and make it scale up harder and harder every time. If they tried to do that, the fact of the matter is there's no way you can take a different route in the way the 14 dungeons are designed. It's a linear path. There's no way for you to choose to go around this mob and kill these sets of mobs instead. There's no choice.
That is, I think, one of the biggest problems with the dungeons outside of, Total Rock. You are locked into one path only.
One hallway.
And it never changes. The fact that, FF14 is probably the least dynamic MMO that I've ever played in my life, I think that's a major strike against, because the dynamic part is what makes things interesting. And even going back into 2.0, when I was so super enthused on this game and just ready to play it all the time, it did have a hypnotic effect when you would play it, where you would feel like after maybe 5-6 hours
you're gonna fall asleep, exhausted.
Yeah, and it would be like in the middle of the day. Whereas, and again, granted, I'm still sub 100 hours in ESO. Granted, not very far. I think I'm like 87, 89 hours plugged into ESO. I don't get that same hypnotic effect playing other MMOs that I do with FF14.
Well, and also to Strife's point about the difference in the way the raid mechanics work, when we do a new raid, even if they present them in a different way, like the 24-man when you're fighting Belias and he does a little charge from around the edge, that's the same thing we've been seeing since Ifrit, right?
Right.
Sometimes they might change the graphics a little bit, but those are still just tremors from Titan.
Mm-hmm.
And we only get 4 bosses at a time in those. But in World of Warcraft, they give you 3 bosses at a time, and you're going from one to another. The mechanics can be so vastly different that you're not just looking at it and saying, "Oh, that's just that thing from the other guy again."
Right.
I don't
like people calling out moves from Sleece, like Sleece positions for what was it, the turn 3 of Omega, because we've seen it before somewhere else.
Right, and to Kalo's point, it's not even just 3 bosses at a time. That's just for the one set of difficulty. Normally, it's an environment with 10 or 11 bosses.
Oh, right, yeah. Sorry. That was for in Final Fantasy 14. When a patch comes out, you get 4 bosses. That's it.
Right.
In World of Warcraft, for an entire tier, here's like 13 bosses.
Yeah.
Right. But here's the kicker. Let's say you're not really that hardcore into raiding. Let's say you don't give a shit about endgame. WoW still has an advantage. ESO still has an advantage. Guild Wars 2 still has an advantage. For Guild Wars 2 and ESO, it looks like the PvP is incredibly strong. And ESO has done pretty good work, it seems like. But again, I haven't played it myself yet. For some of their dungeons and raids, especially I heard Clockwork Tower, or whatever it's called, Clockwork City, is incredible. And then Guild Wars 2 has finally started to add raids to do in case you get bored of PvP, although I still think
Guild Wars 2 has had raids for a long time.
Yeah, they added it in Heart of Thorns. They didn't launch with it, right? Was that it?
I'm not sure, but they've had raids for years.
Okay. I just know it was a newer edition. It wasn't there in the beginning, but that's fine. Either way, the point is that those 2 games have this really strong PvP presence. They've just started to evolve like some of their other presences in other spaces like PvE, and it's really good, right? It's quality. You have a variety of things to do on top of all that story content. When it comes to WoW, you have the Mythic Plus system, which we've talked about before. You have Battlegrounds, you have Arenas, which is like Feast in 14, but not Cancer. And then you also have World Quest.
Well done.
So and the World Quests, right, is this system, to Kalo's point earlier, that Blizzard experimented with. They brought it into Legion, and they tested it out in Warlords of Draenor as these bonus objectives while you level up, and then they would disappear when you hit level cap. And then in Legion, they made it an entire system, kind of like Fates, but they actually attached rewards you cared about to it.
Yes, incentivizing.
Right. So that every 3 hours on the map, your world quest would change. Some would last for a week, some would last for a day, others would last 3 hours. It varies. And you always have something to do. So you can't feel forced to do dailies every day, because it's impossible for you to keep up.
Not to mention, world quests are essentially what dailies used to be, because for the rep grinds now, you're doing world quests, but you don't feel like you're going to the same NPC every time doing your 5 quests and then fucking off for the day. And there's now actually people around you that are also doing them that you're teaming up with, and to the point that you were making in ESO when you're out doing your own thing, as people just sort of show up and make the world feel alive. If you want to team up with them, you can.
Yeah.
That's a big boon.
It's engaging MMO content.
Yes, right. Exactly.
And it actually solves problems too, because the problem with the traditional daily system was always that, okay, I have 20 dailies I can do every day. So it started to feel like a chore.
Oh, I remember that.
I got to do my 20 dailies every day. Now it's like, okay, yeah, good luck trying to do every world quest as it refreshes every few hours. You'd be an insane person. So this actually, in a weird way, freed people from that obligation while still giving the people who wanted to go hardcore plenty of things to do.
Well, and again, you know, when you talk about like you know, having that many dailies, like what is a daily actually like? What point does that serve? It gets somebody to log into the game, which is the end goal of the game, right? Like the game that's what the game designer wants. That's not necessarily what the player wants, right? And I do feel like that's got to be you know, a big part of the conversation, and a big part of the conversation that the devs have to have with themselves is, you know, is this something that I want? Am I trying to motivate to do to have the player do something that I want, or is the player going to be naturally motivated because it's fun, right? Like that there's a difference between those two different things.
Well, the most cleverly designed stuff is stuff that they want you that accomplish both at once.
Exactly. Yes.
I'm going to make content that I want you to play, that you're going to love playing and want to play yourself.
Well, and I think one of the reasons that the world quests did that so well, because back when, you know, when it used to just be dailies, you know, you'd log on to get your rep and they would always just give gold, but if you didn't need that rep anymore, you didn't need those daily quests anymore. Now everything in some way, shape, or form comes from world quests, whether it's rep, whether it's new gear, whether it's some, you know, currency to get better in some way. It's all there. You know, I find myself going to Argus and being like, all right, which of these is going to give me what I need? And I'm not going to, you know, touch the other ones.
Okay, so in WoW, though, how quickly, like how much investment does it take to feel like you've run out of upgrades to do? Because that's, I think, something that all of us have hit in FF14, where if we're staying current on, you know, grinding for tomes, and now we've got all of our tome gear, like right now, dude, I got all of my tome gear from the last patch. The only thing that I'm logging in to do in FF14 is to do Lighthouse once a week to get my upgrade piece to you know, upgrade my gear to 370. Otherwise, you know, because raiding doesn't interest me in the least, at least until, you know, the next couple of mini patches. I feel like there's really not much for me to do in FF14. I'm not even doing experts because it's like, what the fuck is the point? I don't need the tomes.
Okay, so where I'm at as far as gearing goes, because I am still doing quests and just trying to, basically the reason that you're playing through ESO. I'm just doing quests and trying to get caught up on lore type stuff.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Where I'm currently at, though, I do have good enough gear to where if I wanted to now, I could start running like the normal raids. Maybe I could do heroic stuff. I think I'm almost at 930 item level strife, if you could equate that. But I'm at a point. Yeah, so I'm at a point now where the way that I was getting gear, the 910 item level, everything's at least 910, but because WoW has that sort of random what was it, Titan forging, I think it's called, yeah, where when you get a piece of gear, there's a chance that a roll will happen that could upgrade at 5 levels. Then there's a chance another one could, up to a certain point.
Sure.
So even though everything I have is at least item level 910, I'm still going through and doing these world quests to get the currency to buy this gear, because when I open it, chance it could be better than what the 910 actually is. So it's something that's sort of keeping you going, and it's this weird RNG factor that I want to log on each day and be like, can I get that you know, that upgrade? Because when it pops up item upgrade and you look and it's like a 950, like that's a good feeling.
It's like a shiny Pokemon.
It is the shiny Pokemon feeling.
Oh, go on.
I'm sorry. And I was going to say, like, you know, even in your, let's say you were playing WoW, right?
Yeah.
Hypothetically.
Right.
And you're doing your world quests. You get up to where Kahlo is. You start to cap out. You know what? I don't think world quests are that efficient anymore. You're doing them for money, but you're not really doing them for gear, right? What would happen at that point, since you don't like raiding, is you'd have a choice. You want to go do battlegrounds with objectives? You want to go do arena? Let's say you hate PvP. You can still do dungeons. Okay, you want to hop into something quick? You can queue up for a daily heroic. It's kind of like an expert roulette in FF. It's quick and easy, no big deal. Oh, you want something challenging? Okay, go do a mythic dungeon. You can only do them once a week.
Right.
Wait, you beat the mythic dungeon? Here's a keystone. Go do it on level 2. Okay, I guess I'll do that. And you just keep upgrading that keystone, or getting together with your guildmates and friends and getting their keystones and doing these dungeons that get harder and harder. And every week the affixes change. Every week the RNG things that could happen to you change. So even if you don't like raiding, you can go do that. And the people who do like raiding, when it's not a raid night, guess what? They have an activity to do with their raid friends.
I think that one of the things that you got to say, like you clearly talk about between the two games, is that there's the amount of content and like the differences in content between the games is fairly similar when you're talking about doing a dungeon or doing a raid or doing a 24-man or playing PvP.
Right.
But the reasons to want to do that are vastly different between what you're explaining as World of Warcraft to Final Fantasy XIV, and that's absolutely a huge difference in whether a player is going to continue to play it or not.
Yeah. And
in Final Fantasy XIV, like, I'll be very honest, like, that's what you guys are talking about right now is the reason why I stopped playing Final Fantasy XIV daily. It's the reason why I stopped deciding to stream it full time, was because I felt like I got to that point where I saw repeatable mechanics in raids, and one of the main draws for me for Final Fantasy XIV was progression raiding. And when it took me 1 week to beat an entire 6 months worth of raids, because we only get new raids every 4 to 6 months, that was a big turnoff to me. What am I going to continue to log in and do my dailies? Am I going to continue to play a broken ass PvP system that has robots and cheaters?
Well,
like,
Joe, now if you logged in, you could help fish people set up a Far Eastern festival.
Yeah,
not interested.
Super
in my best cloud voice possible. Not interested.
No, and I definitely think that is like the stagnation in FF14 is, I think, its biggest drawback. Whether it's the stagnation in a certain in a certain event, because all of the events are fairly compartmentalized from one another, right? Or whether it's I've kind of capped out and now I don't feel like there's anything for me to do to log in every day. I think that those are both very negative sentiments and can really kind of end up spelling the death of your MMO and your player base, right?
Yeah.
So, it's... And I appreciate the people in the chat who are like, oh, well, you guys should do
the ultimate mode.
Oh my god, like 5 people have done that, and I'm about to flip my computer.
That's cool, man. Like, I'll talk about ultimate, because I was in a raid group that progressed through ultimate, and if you're talking about ultimate, you're still talking about a very small one piece of content. One piece of content, doing it over and over and over again until you complete it once.
Yeah,
and then you've got your weapon, and then you never do it again.
Exactly.
Like, that it's still, and I'll be very honest. Like, that one piece of content frustrated my raid group to the point where I got kicked and was fucking disrespected to the point where I didn't want to raid with them anymore, or raid at all in Final Fantasy, because I wasn't good enough as a 99 percentile fucking dragoon. Jesus. And the entire raid static broke up because of that one piece of content.
That's fun.
That is not constructive to a video game.
No, it's not.
That's killing the game.
And even if that is compelling content for someone, one
piece of gear,
extreme end game raid should not be the only compelling content in a game.
And one piece of gear shouldn't be the only piece of meat that they're dangling out for you to want to do it either.
Absolutely.
This is the. I mean, I've made this suggestion I don't know how many fucking times, but if you had a set of gear that clearly outclassed everything, it was better than the raid gear, it was better than the current tome gear, and that shit was RNG'd into drop pools at very, very, very low drop rates, sprinkled between different events, it would be enough to incentivize participation in a variety of activities in FF14. But no, because the Final Fantasy XIV dev team has to program every fight so that the item level cap is taken into account, and it can be done in a vacuum with their small dev team to be able to work out the mechanics, then it doesn't fit into their little box to put out for content. And that, I think, is extremely frustrating, because at the core of it, that says bad dev design.
Well, it's crazy, because you can actually compare BDO and Final Fantasy on the two opposite ends of that spectrum, with how little RNG Final Fantasy has in its progression and how way too much RNG BDO has in its progression. And it's like, there is a happy medium. It sounds like WoW actually has a pretty good system where you just log in, and if you play the normal stuff you normally play, there's a chance for you to get even better gear.
And if you put more time into it, that chance increases. Yeah.
Well, but Final Fantasy is way too scheduled, monotonous content.
And
it's just we can expect everything that's coming.
I mean, I understand that basically what I'm describing is the Legion Legendaries strife, as you just pointed out in chat. But the thing is that that has been very compelling and has worked very well for World of Warcraft. And to me, it just, like I said, to me it speaks more to the ability for the dev team to develop compelling content as opposed to, you know, worries of balance or anything like that.
And by the way, as successful as the Legion Legendaries are, Blizzard has looked at it and you know, realized that there were some negative consequences that those had, and going into Battle for Azeroth, they're taking out all the negative stuff and taking what works, then re-putting it into a new system.
But that's exactly what Blizzard is doing, that Final Fantasy seems very reluctant to do, is they're putting it out there and they're letting their community sit with it, deal with it, and figure it out, and then going, okay, how do we refine that into a better system moving forward? You know, not everything is going to be perfect that even Blizzard does for World of Warcraft. The fact that they make mistakes and then subsequently learn from their mistakes seems to be the thing that the FF14 dev team is fundamentally afraid to do.
Well, it's tough because I feel like Final Fantasy XIV dev team has gotten way too used to reacting to the community instead of creating content for the community.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a big problem, man, because when you get into this position of like, hey, is it too hard? Is it too soft? Let me make a decision. You keep telling me what you want to do, but I just can't seem to get it right.
Yeah.
Instead of them just saying, hey, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And you guys can play it or not. And, you know,
last point, Strife, and then we got to let you go.
Sorry, on that point, Joe, you know, there was actually an excellent article written by one of the WoW community managers a while back about how Blizzard can't always just cater to the community because you never know, and it's a vocal minority, and that's why it's so important for the community members, to any dev team, Blizzard, Square, doesn't matter, to give detailed feedback. Not that something's bad, not that something's good, but how something makes them feel and what the specific issue they're having is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the craziest part about MMOs is no matter what happens, when something changes, people are going to complain, and that you can't change that no matter what. And there's a bell curve. There's a bell curve of people who aren't engaged. There's the bell curve of people who are unbelievably engaged, who've spent the money on the Founders Pack and have been playing every second of every blinking moment of every minute since the game's come out. You've got the 80% of casuals that just want to have fun in the middle of it. So the largest population of people that aren't interested or aren't engaged as much as the hardcore people that are playing it every day. So whose perspective are you going to take? If you take that small percentage of top line 10% players, it's going to piss off 80% of the player base. You take the 80%, you're going to piss off the people that are the probably most influential and vocal part of the game, that are going to go out on Twitch and on forums and on Reddit and bash your fucking game for blowing it up.
Yes.
You know, so you're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Well, but not only that, I mean, I think that FF14, you can even take that one step further, where with Stormblood, it felt like they were at a point where they needed to switch their marketing tactic from getting new players into the game to retaining the player base that's already there. And it sort of felt like, you know, with all of the marketing around Stormblood, why does Square-Enix value someone who hasn't been paying their bills for the better part of 2 years over someone who, like me, has been very dedicated and has never lapsed in his sub, you know, looking for, you know, to want more out of the fucking game that I've been paying through the teeth for. You know what I mean? Like, why is someone who has never even shelled out the $40 for the fucking game more important than me? I don't understand that, and I don't think that I ever got a good answer on that. And I hope that, you know, as we move forward to 5.0, Square Enix starts to realize that there's just a limited amount of people that you're going to be able to get into the door, and you're going to start seeing diminishing returns the more you start designing this game for even, you know, someone who is going to be coming to it fresh. Like, there's got to be stuff for them to do now that you've built that. Fine, it's there. Let them experience that when they start the game. Now move on and focus your development to the people who have been paying your sub.
Yeah, it's really one of the saddest parts of the MMO actual video game business.
Yeah,
is because the new user and the new customer they're always going to want to market to them more than the fan already. Because if you're a fan already, doesn't matter whether I like it or I don't, I'm probably gonna be interested in it when new shit comes out. Like,
still playing it, yeah.
I'm still gonna play it, dude. Like, I will not stop paying for Final Fantasy 14, even though I'm not playing it. Like, I will always pay for my sub. It's on active renewal. It's never gonna go down.
Still paying for FF11.
Yeah,
dude. I'm a fan, and it's a crazy thing. It's legitimately insane for me to say that out loud and think about it for like right now, because like I'm already a fan of the game. I love it so much. It made such an impact on my life that I can't say I'm not ever going to stop playing it. But like I might not play it as much is what I'm saying.
But at the same time,
but like
really
at the same time, they're getting your subs, so do they care that you don't log on?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's oh man, that's the shrewd business point of it. So I really think that it'd be really interesting to see if Square-Enix has had the foresight into that. The way that players are playing their game now, to see if 5.0 actually is going to introduce content that is in reaction to that, or whether they're just going to see more of this. We're going to see more of the same.
I predict more of the same, but I'm at my core, I'm a cynic. Let's talk about combat here for a second, because Nika, we forced you to play Tera.
Oh, I was hoping we'd get through an episode and we wouldn't need her to say anything about it.
That just like wasted my life yesterday.
I was thinking about it. Thinking about it. No. But Nika, we forced you at gunpoint to play Tera, kicking and screaming the entire time.
Not that much.
I'm kidding.
Had to clear up some space on my computer.
I heard that boobs were a big aspect of that game.
Yeah, so I understand.
Oh my god, they are.
So I am a gorgeous girl with big cans.
Here's the only thing that I know about Tera is that they seem to have programmed a lot in terms of jiggle physics, but I don't know anything else about it.
Yeah, the jiggle physics are wrong. So like every single female outfit, even if it's like hard leather, like a hard armor, has open front cleavage with, even though hard armored cups will jiggle. It doesn't make sense.
I'm fine. This sounds awesome.
Like there's not a single female outfit, even the starter gear, that doesn't have boobs. Like it's very pretty design. It's just very weird.
Okay, so we asked you to compare Tera's battle system to FF14's.
It is the 100% opposite. So I've only gotten, I played it yesterday for probably 10 hours, and I got to level 29, I think. And from what I can see, there's the battle system is very actiony, but it's also very streamlined at the same time. So there's some good things about it and there's some bad things about it. Almost every move combos off of the previous move, and when that happens, it just pops up and you can just mash spacebar the entire time and not actually have to press the buttons.
Sounds intelligent.
There are, yeah. I mean, I think as you get higher level,
Kappa.
I think as you get higher level and you get more abilities, they're less likely to do that. But you can hit, FF14 has its 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, and then it's off global cooldowns. Tera doesn't have a global cooldown. You're just mashing the left click is attack and right click is evade, and the other moves are all on their own cooldowns. However, using other moves resets other moves cooldowns. So essentially, even though some of them have cooldowns, is once you get enough moves, they're all resetting each other and you're almost always using something.
Sounds interesting.
It is pretty cool, but then the ones that all combine off of each other are like, oh, you can use this now, press spacebar, press spacebar. And I can do 8 moves in a row just pressing spacebar. So it's kind of lame in that aspect, but then there are a few moves like my dash forward or my explosive ones that don't use that. So I actually have to reach up and press my macro keys, which is kind of awkward sometimes considering the mouse is the camera, so I can't click on any of them. So I have to let go of my movement, which is very important in Tera because you actually have to dodge. And there are AoE grounds when things are casting, like ground spells like we have in 14. But if something's about to smash you down with your hand, you have to hit your right click evade and evade around it, which is pretty cool. So I think it's much more hectic of a battle system because you can fight I can take on 20 mobs my level at once and kill them. It's almost every single,
very fun. almost satisfying.
It is actually. Even though the battle system hasn't gotten super complex at level 29, I feel like I'm constantly able to accomplish things, and almost every single move I do is AoE. Almost every single one will hit everything around me. Sometimes that's awesome, sometimes not so awesome when I hit something that's a little bit higher level. In terms of doing the quests, it's interesting because all of the MSQ quests are streamlined into the overworld, which seems cool, but then they either respawn or don't respawn at really stupid like levels. So it's like I'm doing this boss. There's a boss here. I have to go into this Beastman encampment. I see the boss. I kill him. He respawns in 2 seconds and aggroes me again.
Yeah, you know, I did notice. I did notice some of that quick respawn problem with ESO. And
I go back to the NPC and they're like, "Oh, you killed him." I was like, "Yeah, I killed him like 4 times."
Right,
because he wouldn't leave me alone.
Which one did you count? But I mean, like, you know, in terms of ESO, I think that their battle system may be one of the things that kind of holds them back a little bit. I was not as impressed with the battle system. Here, I'm going to do a quick impression of the battle system right here. You're going to be doing this a lot. Just click to attack a lot.
Tera feels like a lot of clicking, but at the higher level, every single level I go, you have to actually buy your abilities. I mean, and at first, gold seems really, really hard, but once you've done like one dungeon, you've got just like superfluous amounts of gold.
Remember when you had to do that in WoW, and then they're like, "That's really dumb. Who wants to buy their abilities?"
But the thing is, it's like you can buy them from like an ability vendor, but you can also just open your ability menu and buy all of them. So like, I feel like then. There's a lot of pointless stuff in it. Playing through it as a low player, I realize there's a lot of things in Tera that FF14 has done 10,000 times better. You know, like inventory management. For God's sake, like everything is in your inventory and you have to expand your inventory, and equipping gear is so frustrating. Although every single time you mouse over a gear, it has your current equipped piece, so you can compare and sell things way easier. That's nice. But like having an armory chest versus an inventory is like the best thing 14 could have ever done for management. Like that's amazing. Like there's no level sync in Tera, so the thing about dungeons is that you can actually out level the dungeon queues. So like what I do really like about Tera's dungeons is that there are actually overworld quests that require you to go in the dungeon and do them. Some of them are like just kill a mob you're going to kill anyway. Some of them are like go over to these boxes and explode them. And if you're not actually doing that, you can ignore that quest completely if you don't have it on your quest log, or you can go and do it. And I thought that was kind of cool because it kept giving you a reason to queue back into the dungeon.
Okay.
And then it was like, oh, go in there and talk to this NPC at the beginning of the dungeon that I didn't talk to the last time I went through, you know, like little things like that then I can come out and do an overworld quest and get some more XP because of it. I thought that was really cool. However, I then decided to progress through the story. I gained a lot of levels. I went to go queue back up for the dungeon, and it's no longer there. And so I Googled it and I realized you can out level the dungeon queues, and now I have to either find a party outside and walk into the dungeon myself or get high enough level to do it solo, which kind of sucks because now those quests are just sitting there not getting done.
So I think the point that we're kind of driving at is that in terms of the combat, actually FF14 really holds up versus other games. And I actually think as I play more MMOs and kind of branch out, that I find myself every time I return to FF14, the battle system is the thing that is kind of the standout.
It's good, but I do know that, like, I mean, Strife was always complaining when going back and forth between WoW and 14 that WoW has a much shorter global cooldown, so it feels like more action-based, even though it does have a global cooldown. Sure. Whereas 14 has like a 2.53 second global cooldown. It does give it that slower feel. We're coming from things like 11 where like you literally stand there, stand there and swing until you get 100 TP and then hit one button. So like, you know, this seems extremely fast compared to that. But then playing Tera, I'm not sure how raids and higher level things will getting higher, but I know that a lot of it was just kind of like tank and spank, throw yourself at it. The dungeons were actually 5 people, like a tank, healer, and 3 DPS, and you just kind of throw yourself at the boss and just kind of flip dodge, just to kind of get around all the mechanics. I don't know if the mechanics get much harder than that in other dungeons. I do know the one thing I did like about the dungeon queues, though, is that if you're queuing for like 5 minutes and you haven't got a queue, a little thing will pop up that's like, we're having a hard time finding the ideal class setup. Would you still like to continue this queue anyway with maybe a less so ideal class setup? You can click yes or no. And then you go in and you might not have the right classes or whatever, but when you die, you can pay gold to just revive yourself. So it's
interesting.
It works. I mean, at the beginning, it sucks because it's like 3 big gold pieces, which I was like, I don't have that. But eventually you get that and it's no big deal. We were able to do an entire dungeon without a healer.
Gotcha. Well, interesting. Let's go back to our phone lines and talk to Mooney Xanadu of Coral, who wants to talk about FF14's combat system. Mooney, thanks for calling us here on Limit Break Radio.
How's it going, guys? It's first time calling, long time listener. How's it going? I just want to talk about the combat, and I just heard you say, Nero, that you feel that the FF14 combat is actually what draws you into the game, and I strongly disagree with that. I feel like the combat to FF14 in Stormblood is this lacking compared to what it used to be, and that used to be like the thing that draw a lot of people into the game. I feel is the combat.
So do you think that was primarily between this change between Heavensward and Stormblood that happened, or do you think that, you know, just like when you play other MMOs, you have a better experience with combat when you play them?
I mean, I don't know. Like I'm been playing a lot of Overwatch lately. And
okay.
I feel like like 14 is there, like that was the gimmick a little bit, like the synergy between, you know, roles and everything like that. Like that was the draw in for a lot of players and stuff. And definitely now in Stormblood, it's like they kind of took that away, some of that draw. I mean, like with Warriors, they could, like their rotation is just like you could just do anything now.
Yeah.
Red mages and I mean, it's like they're trying to like halfway, like kind of be like Tera in a way where like you could, because I've been playing Tera as well lately. I'm a level 60 warrior, and you could really do anything in that game and just feel like a badass in a way. But like at the same time, yeah,
take on 20 mobs at once and just explode them with one big giant charge. It's pretty satisfying.
Right. It's amazing. But at the same time, like it's like you could do everything in the game. So it's kind of brain dead in a way. Like you don't really have to work with other players while in Tera, like going through a dungeon. Like you're just hitting buttons.
But you don't really even need tanks and stuff around the bosses. You just like, you can just run for it, aggro everything and blow it all up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I don't really know if I can agree with you with the battle system getting worse over the course of the years from Final Fantasy XIV.
Oh.
Like, things have become easier for classes, and the synergy is really nice to see. I just think that if you're gonna talk about Final Fantasy within Final Fantasy and its evolution, I don't know if that's true. But if you're talking about Final Fantasy compared to other video games, I think I think I understand where you're coming from. But like Final Fantasy XIV, the thing about its battle system is it does become monotonous once you figure it out. You figure out your rotation, and you just apply your rotation.
And it's
on any target,
and it's the same all the time.
The thing you have to consider with Final Fantasy is that when you're trying to take it to the next level of content, you're not just doing your rotation. You're doing rotation and trying to maintain uptime while working in synergistically with 7 other people.
Right.
And dodge mechanics on top of that, and learn the dance on top of that.
And you know, the thing that I think is really interesting is that a lot of MMOs, those types of like job adjustments, class adjustments, or battle adjustments will happen mid-expansion, and you know, sometimes you know, just a patch is enough to change things. And obviously Square-Enix does do some adjusting during the patch cycle, you know,
if you're a warrior,
or you know, Dark Knight's head potency adjustment, stuff like that. But in terms of like a major job adjustment, those things are really reserved for you know, for an expansion. Yeah, for an expansion. And then it seems like it's not just like 1 or 2 jobs that gets an overhaul, it's every job. And I don't think that every job necessarily needed that overhaul, right? Like I think that there were some jobs that were operating just fine in Heavensward that they changed between Heavensward and Stormblood and made them a bit less fun, where they didn't need to change them at all.
You know, there was a moment that I had last night in World of Warcraft, and do you guys remember in 14 when some raid group, some ninjas found out that there was actually a better way to do the rotation to get out more damage, and Square-Enix subsequently patched that out so that everyone was stuck back into the same rotation that they determined, you know, was the ninja rotation, right?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so I was about to get a new legendary last night that would have completely changed the way that my rotation worked by including an ability that normally you wouldn't use because it puts a frost effect on something which slows it. So great for PvP, but not really useful in PvE. But had I got this new legendary, every time I apply ice, fire, or nature, I now do like 4.5% more overall damage. So you would then have to work that in. By doing that, 2 different talents that normally wouldn't have been as useful are now more useful and would have dramatically changed the way that I do my rotation. On top of that, when you get to certain stat thresholds, like I recall back when I used to be a Shadow Priest, more haste meant that your dots would tick more quickly, right? Which means at first you'd have to start putting on more dots, and eventually they changed it to where you just had more ticks within a spell. But the idea that as your gear gets better, not even counting when a piece of gear gives you a special effect that just changes the way that an actual move works, but just by getting more stats, you have different ways that you can do your rotation that makes you more efficient at what you do.
Way more dynamic.
It's way more dynamic, and you actually start to see in how much damage people put out their actual skill. I think is so much more compelling than what some jobs, not all, but what some jobs in FF14 have.
But there, but again, with FF14, there is a singular path that you're on.
That's right. Yeah.
Whether it's gear, whether it's job progression, I mean, it's a singular path to get to the next ability or the next thing. You know.
Yep, I agree.
It's another repetition of the safety that they apply into the game itself. They say we're not gonna give you guys different options. We're not gonna let you go for different weapons. We're not gonna let you go for different rotations. We're just gonna lump battle into this one safe zone.
We need to know what you're doing so we can control it and nothing breaks.
Yeah.
It's like as if 14's battle system was like pizza, right? It's like a dough. But then like WoW has like sauce or talents, and then they also throw cheese on there, which is legendaries, and then you also have different abilities within the legendaries, and that's all your toppings. It's like WoW has like the full complete meal versus Final Fantasy 14 just has a good base, but you know, we want more than that.
Right. And again, it seems so rife to be able to make something bigger than what it is, right? Like, it seems like, you know, like you've got all of the elements, right? Like you've got all of the ingredients sitting in front of you. Why are you continually remaking the dough, right?
Because they don't business wise, they don't want to. That's why.
Because they're bakers.
Because they're afraid.
And they are. If someone doesn't like that,
they don't have to make the risk. That's the toughest part about it. You'll see it in tons of games. Like they don't have to go out of their way to try to reinvent an MMO when they're making just enough of the slice of the pie that they're making right now. You know,
it's too bad because this could be the best MMO on the planet right now.
If they had a completely redesigned, like a legitimately overhauled PvP, like if they redesigned everything from PvP and took out, I don't even know what I could say about PvP, but like if they were to just redesign PvP, they could probably double in population.
Mooney, thanks for the call. We appreciate having you on.
Thank you.
Yep. Have a good one. If you want to call Limit Break Radio on Skype, 810-515-8715, limitbreakradio.com/Discord. We've got one more caller hanging on the line before we take off here. But Joe, I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about, you know, what you've learned through specifically BDO, because I know that that's where you've been spending a lot of time recently, and you know what you think FF14 could learn from the course of what BDO has been doing.
Hell yeah, man. So it's just like really cool because I've really enjoyed my journey into Black Desert Online over the last 11 months. Just to give anybody a little bit of preface, like of where I was when I wanted to start playing different games. Over the last 2 years, I played 5 different MMOs: Elder Scrolls Online, Star Wars, BDO, ArcAge, and Final Fantasy 14. And for me, like I've been trying to find and experience a lot more games than just Final Fantasy, because I felt like for the first 4 years of my MMO playing, I boxed myself in and I talked so much shit about WoW. I talked so much shit about ESO. I talked so much shit about these other games. I was like, Final Fantasy is the only game to play. And I had such a closed-minded perspective. And the second I started playing other games, it opened up to the actual reality of what games are out there and what other games can offer you. So we started off the conversation before the show started about how brilliant it is when you play a different MMO to see what you like about, what I enjoy about Final Fantasy and what I don't like about Final Fantasy by playing another game that I like or I don't like. But specifically by playing a game that I don't like, I learned what I do like about Final Fantasy 14. Well, I was talking about Blessed when we said that, but anyway. BDO is such a different MMO compared to Final Fantasy 14. It's almost, I talk about it and I compare it to, I talk about it as the antithesis of Final Fantasy 14. And you've got this theme park, story-driven, linear MMO. In the opposite is Black Desert, where you've got literally no story, PvE with Final Fantasy 14 as well. Literally no story, like no emphasis on the storyline whatsoever. You get rewards for it, but there's no one, like literally said no one ever. I can't wait to find out what happens in the Black Desert Online story mode. Like no one cares about that story at all.
So it's like generic final, like a generic fantasy questing, right?
Yeah,
like there's a king somewhere and you're helping them and whatever.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, got it. Okay. That's kind of how I felt about Guild Wars 2 to me when I was playing through the storyline.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, oh yeah, there's a king and there's some places. It's a city and I'm here now. Like great.
This plant guy's my friend, I guess. Why not?
Yeah. Does that guy look like a lion? Why? That doesn't really matter.
Who cares?
We're never gonna get an answer on that, so let's just keep moving.
I gotta get this jump puzzle done.
Yeah, that's right.
The jump puzzles were super fun though.
No, they weren't. I hated that.
But yeah, in Black Desert Online, like the thing that drew me in first was the combat, was looking at how beautifully engaging the X amount of different classes were, just watching them, and like how like the animations, the way that the moves like carried me one way, like the buffs that I got for using certain moves. And it's tough to compare tab target to action combat, because once you touch action combat, you're like, wow, like I'm actually.
Oh yeah, Tera doesn't have tab targeting either.
Yeah, tab targeting is rough. You're very restricted when you like. I thought it was great for 4 years, and then I put my hands on BDO, and I was like, wow, this feels amazing, dude. Like, combo system feels really good. The classes are fluid and really unique, and for like 8 months of playing that game, the system was one way. So, I mean, long story short, BDO understands from a business perspective why people are playing and like what it is, and they honestly don't give a damn about PvE content. Like, they don't care that you want to run a dungeon together with your friends. At the end of the day, they realize you're playing, so you might as well just kill mobs in the open world if you're killing mobs in a dungeon. That's an interesting concept, because people do usually crave for that PvE, but what are you really doing when you're doing a dungeon? Like, I'm doing a dungeon, I'm playing the game for a reward. It's the same thing that you get when you're grinding. So like, you can get monotonous doing dungeons all over and over and over again, or you can get monotonous grinding in the open world. It is what it is. It's the same means to an end to gear up and progress. So there's a lot of a huge heavy focus on PvP in Black Desert Online, and I didn't get as involved into the PvP. Like, I wanted to play it for PvP, but I didn't get as deep into the PvP system until I started really gearing up. And that's probably, again, one of the biggest detriments that the game has. Like, one of the biggest like pushbacks, that you have to play the game for like 2,000 to 3,000 hours to even get to a point where you can compete with some of the players that have been playing the game.
Oh man, what?
Yeah, so it's hard, dude. Like imagine there were no catch-up mechanics in Final Fantasy 14, and you could go fight somebody with 370 gear score against a level 30 that just got fucking out of Brayflocks. You know what I mean? Like, that's the way that BDO is. It's very
okay.
very
I'd love to PvP challenge people coming out of Brayflocks. Like, give me that cheese, you piece of shit,
dude.
So what that kind of reminds me of is sort of the way that Eve, you know, has a smaller player base, right? But they're all so into it because it takes such a big commitment to get to the point that they are. I mean, at that point, you're not going to go and fuck off and play some other game.
Exactly. It's the building up it's the commitment and the obligation. So they know, like, the guys that make that game, they know that the more money and the more time you spend on the game, the more you're not going to want to go somewhere else. And in Era, we actually had this exact conversation with the relic weapon when they nerfed the relic weapon quests, because why should a new player spend 10 hours getting a weapon that took me 40?
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's like basically the entire game of Black Desert Online when it comes to gearing. You go and you spend, like, I spent 9 months getting to what's called soft cap in that game, which is basically like end game gear, but you don't have to go further than that ever. And then there's players that have been playing since the beginning that go beyond, and they're like unbelievably strong. Like, they're gods in the game. It's unreal how fucking strong you can get in that game past soft cap. But like, the progression's different. You get one chest piece, one head piece, one glove, one boot. You get your main hand weapon, your awakening weapon, and your sub weapon, all boss gear, and then you get your accessories, which is 2 rings, 2 earrings, a necklace, and a belt. And you go for specific sets. Like, you go for that one meta, if you want for damage, and then you can literally go for attack or defense, or you can go for accuracy or evasion, and like just those types of little swaps you can make. Like I could swap one piece of gear and be like way tankier, or like two pieces of gear and be like unbelievably tanky. And there's different sets of gear I can use for different situations. So I actually coined the phrase, like, I don't know if it's I came up with it, but like I started using the phrase best in situation as BIS instead of best in slot.
Oh, okay.
Because
that makes sense.
Yeah. I wanted like, if there was somebody who was going to 1v1 me in the wild and I had some like important items on me and I didn't want to die, I put all my defensive gear on. And I couldn't be killed. Like I just could not be freaking killed. If I wanted to blow up somebody 1v1, if somebody was grinding in my rotation, I wanted to kill them because you can flag up on anybody in the open world anywhere you want in that game. I put on all my offensive gear and I go and I kill them, and you just move on.
Well, I mean, kind of interesting to that point. I think that the way that Square-Enix ended up nerfing the relic grind is kind of emblematic of the way that they, kind of move on from their older content and just kind of let it languish. I always thought that the way that once eye level has moved on from a certain dungeon or a certain portion of the game, that Square Enix seems very either unwilling or uninterested in going back and revisiting or trying to re-incentivize participation in those areas of the game, and I think that's why everything feels so disposable in FF14.
I feel like it's a lack of replayability where you do it once and then why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Like what there is no reason outside of like helping somebody else. And I think that is one of the coolest draws in Final Fantasy XIV that no one can really argue is probably one of the best things about the game, is that the current player base and current players are so helpful and want to help players who have not been through it before, unlike a lot of other games that people like can literally shit on newcomers and newbies.
Back in 2.0, I'd say yes, but now that we've seen the way that everything gets recycled and gets easier, why help someone do something really, really strong? Just wait a couple months and then just do it.
That's true, but I can speak to the fact that I've had to pug people almost every single week for raids, and the thing is that people will join who have cleared it before and just to help. And I've asked people too. I'm like, why are you doing this? You've cleared for the week. Like, you don't know any of us. They're like, I just really like this game and I like helping people.
Because there's nothing else to do. They're brain dead.
The biggest differences between the two, I would say, in terms of gear progression is that no matter what, if you just keep doing the things that you're supposed to be doing in Final Fantasy, you'll eventually get the best gear, the highest gear level,
right?
Which means like you can literally have no understanding and get carried through the majority of the content, and you can become an eye level 360 X class, and you'll just get all the stuff without doing any raiding. And in Black Desert Online, you literally have to earn through blood, sweat, and tears every single piece of gear that you get, or be unbelievably lucky. And I like that a lot. I like that there's such a difference between Final Fantasy and Black Desert Online. It is like night and day, and a lot of people that do like that participation trophy hand holding through the story like type gameplay, like, and I do enjoy it as well. Like I'm not trying to, like,
well, there's a lot of those here in FF14. That's for sure.
It happens. Like I'm not trying to bash against that, but it is very interesting playing the exact opposite, where you have to literally go out and work and figure it out. And there are very unreliable internet sources for all the information. Like you either have to find somebody who just did it because the game's changed over the last 2 years, or you're not going to be able to figure out or get accurate information. It's really interesting, man. The game is huge. There's tons of stuff to do. Like the life skilling and the non-active gameplay is very involved, where you like actually get a worker that you can go out and send to do a task who can specifically mine a resource that you can process or use another worker to make something even more. So like if I'm at work, I can have like hundreds of millions of silver of an income when I come back to the game, all just from setting up an AFK worker empire, which is like really attractive to a lot of people that play and have full-time jobs, because they can still accommodate, they can still create an income for themselves when they're not at directly at their computer.
Which is what I think Square Enix attempted to do with the retainer ventures, but
yeah,
it's not really the same at all, which is crazy. It's just like a one little item, and you don't get anything worth it from that. So like overall, the biggest differences I've seen between the two games is like the hard focus in PvP, and like the limitless progression is something that is really fun because like, you know, me, like I have a shit ton of time to be able to grind, and I'm like one of the most leveled monks, or pardon me, I'm Final Fantasy. I'm one of the most leveled strikers in the world in North America now because I've put 11 months of grinding into the game. But you also have to say, like, there is not much to the gameplay loop in Black Desert Online outside of grinding for gains, blowing up your gains, and then fighting someone else. And that's like the essence of the game. And that becomes it becomes a very small amount of content if you've been playing that gameplay loop for 2 years.
Right.
And, you know, like Final Fantasy XIV is similar, where you do your dailies, you do your raid, and you get pissed off at PvP, you know what I mean? Or you life skill and you log out. You know, it's no matter what, at some point, I think that any intelligent person is going to go, man, this is getting boring.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? Absolutely.
That's the downfall of almost any MMO right now.
That is true. That is true. Monotony is a big challenge for MMO designers. Let's take our last call. Crimson Tinted from Gilgamesh is hanging on the line. Crimson, what's going on?
Hey, guys. How you been? Long time no speak.
Hey, thanks for calling Limit Break Radio.
What's up, Cribs?
Yo, what's up, Joe? Anyway, so what I wanted to talk about was sort of an overall impression I've been getting after about a year or so of feeling bored with 14 and looking towards other MMOs to fill needs and gaps that, you know, are created by 14 for me, right? And I look around and, you know, I listen, you know, I listen to y'all's discussion, and you know, I go on Reddit, God help me, and you know, look at people bantering back and forth about their what they like better about MMOA or MMOB.
Right.
And mind you, I've been playing MMOs since Ultima Online day one. Okay, I've seen the Golden Age come and go. I've seen the different kinds of players that have showed up. I've watched the people that have made these games figure out different ways to monetize their MMOs. Mm-hmm. And I guess what worries me the most is that it feels like as an MMO player that I have less of a voice or less of a ability to influence the makers of these games to actually implement the changes that people are discussing than ever before. And I do wonder, as MMO communities, as we continue these discussions, for lack of better verbiage, what's the point? Like, Square Enix has started to, as an example of 14, lock up a revenue stream with the cash shop, where they got a bunch of people that showed up at Stormblood,
sure,
buying hundreds of dollars of cash shop items, and they, like you said before, and you're like, why does my subscription matter less than that guy, right? But honestly, he's made Square Enix more money. So I guess my main question to everybody here is, what can we do as a community, as a player base? What can you folks do as folks with an audience on the stage, right? What can we do to actually influence these publishers to start implementing some of these changes, or are we just going to be stuck as a player base, essentially MMO hopping, to the end of time?
Crimson, thank you very much for the call. We really appreciate it. As always, it's great to hear from you. But I actually think that this is a really great point to kind of end the discussion on here. It is like, well, what do we do as fans of MMOs? Are we sort of entrenched in our separate camps? And I mean, because now every company has an MMO or is developing an MMO. There's so much choice when it comes to the world that you want to adventure in, and very few people are like dedicated, like, I only play MMOs, like, you know what I mean? Like, there are people who, I think the majority of gamers have an MMO that they play, and then they have other video games that they also play. And I think, when it comes to do developers even need to listen to their player base, I think that we're probably in an era where no, they don't. And it makes me sad to say that, right?
Well, I think it'll probably depend on like a company to company basis.
Because it's sort of like if you don't like it, go play WoW.
Well, yeah,
you know what I mean? Like you can take that approach.
Right. World of Warcraft changes its content and whatnot to sort of serve, I think, the player base. But as Joe was saying with Black Desert Online, they know what they're about and they know what their players want. So is Black Desert probably ever going to change? No, it's not.
Well, it's a little bit different because like I gotta right now they're doing that with they say they know what they want and they're actually destroying the population of the current player base, which is like for a long time they've done well, I think, making a good game, but like very recently it comes into a very tough, like I hate to interject because it's like off topic, but like in the last 2 months they've destroyed the active player base of the game so much to like it's either because they're trying to scale it or they're going to undo it, or they're trying to literally send the game to console, because like I know at E3 you guys should be checking this out, they're going to be demoing the console version of BDO on Xbox. So like they're trying to dumb the game down for console players, and then it's just going to become another Tera.
Gross.
Which is what it is. But like, it's I just had to say that about BDO. Like I don't want you guys to think I'm saying like the BDO community knows what the fuck they're doing in terms of like the development team.
Okay, fair enough.
Give their game.
Yeah, and when it comes to being receptive to feedback, I mean, you just look at the FF14 community that, for as great as we think our suggestions probably are, there are probably, and I would hazard to guess that there are a variety of answers that Square Enix would give as to why that's not possible, or that would be counter to their game design, why it would do more damage in the long run than it would to do it the way that they're doing, right? Like, I think that it's listen, making an MMO is tough. You're not going to satisfy 100% of your audience. You can't. You'll never be able to do that. And there's frankly a lot of voices in the FF14 community that have very strong opinions about the direction that they want the content to go. So I think what I would say is like, yes, while I do have a platform, I don't know that makes my opinions any more valid than any of your guys's, right? Like the official forums, like it's a democracy. Right? Like they're not making the game for me, just like they're not making the game for you. They're making it for what they think is their ideal audience, or the widest possible audience. From a business standpoint, they kind of have to do that. And I'm willing to give them that wiggle room. I'm willing to give them that benefit of the doubt. And like I understand that there are very practical reasons but behind the decisions that they make, but that doesn't preclude me from offering my opinion on it either. So when it comes to what can we do to make them listen to us, just keep talking. Like, never shut up. That's what I think the answer is even if you feel disheartened,
we are never shutting up.
Don't stop providing feedback and criticism, because even if it's wrong, even if it's off base, it's out there for the creator to listen to and judge and decide whether or not that's a good idea for them. And that's, I think, the best that we can hope for.
It's well said, man. I agree on a lot of the points. I think number one, like, thank you, Crimson, for asking this question, dude, because it's such a brilliant question right now in 2018 to say, like, what do you do as an MMO fan? Like, what is the right thing to do? And I think if I was going to try to answer that question, in my personal opinion, you got to kind of take a step back from MMOs and actually ask yourself, like, why am I playing video games? And for me, that answer is for fun. So if I was going to make any type of encouragement or give my opinion on answering that question, to be very honest, it doesn't matter what game you're playing. It doesn't matter when you're playing it. What matters more than anything else is who you're playing that game with and whether you're having fun. Like, you might not like Star Wars The Old Republic. You might not like Elder Scrolls. You might be a fan of WildStar, and that might not be the popular opinion. But if you find yourself having fun in that game, it doesn't really matter what anybody else says on a forum, what anybody else says on Reddit. If you find yourself having fun with the people that are surrounding you in that video game, continue to have fun.
Yeah.
But be very aware of where you decide to who and where you decide to spend your money. Because when you do decide to spend your money, you are making an investment into that video game.
Yeah.
Or into that community. And that's what's going to make the biggest difference in the long run of whether that game survives or not. The only thing you can do, again, is talk about it on a forum, and decide to invest your money in it. Like, I would love to be able to say a tiny bit about like Bless Online right now, where everybody in the freaking world thinks that that's going to be a game it's going to be a game-changing game. It's new WoW killer, blah blah blah. And it's simply a game that came out in 2011 that's unbelievably overhyped. Yeah. And it brings nothing new to the system. And everyone who's playing that game who spent $150 is dramatically defending their ego.
Wait, what?
And defending their money and hard-earned investment, defending their thought process. I mean, if this game fails, then I'm an idiot, and you might be. Yeah. But at the same time, that doesn't take away from the fact that you might be able to have fun playing Bless with your friends.
Right.
Because that's what's more important, is you can go into that game and create your own community and have fun. Like, I might go play WoW. I might go play Final Fantasy XI for fun. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to have fun. Right. So you got to be very aware when you go out and say, hey, is this game worth my money? Is this game worth my time? Can I have fun playing it? It's different from like when games used to come out, you never were able to even talk to a developer. Like, there was no communication. There was literally no way for a developer to even hear your voice. So again, with the systems like Reddit and YouTube and Twitch, like, people do get a chance to have their voices heard in some capacity. So that's why I love LBRs. No matter what, I'm gonna hear what you guys have to say, dude.
Right.
I'm gonna hear what you guys have to say at the end of the day.
And the thing is, we on the show know that we have a specific set of opinions, which is why we open up our call line. I understand, saying like, dude, just go start a podcast about it. That's what you got to do to fix a game. Just put your opinions out there. We did that. We've done that. We've done this podcast for now 4 fucking years, and Square-Enix has never taken an iota of suggestions that we've put out there.
That's not true.
But
male bunny suit.
But
you're welcome.
But the thing is that doesn't preclude us from putting those opinions out there, because we do see the ripple effect of talking and having these discussions with the community, because there is, for as much as people want to bash on the FF14 community and how, whiny we can be, at the same time, there is a strong contingent of players out there who want a more compelling game and aren't afraid to offer their opinions about how to get there. And, that I think is an interesting conversation, and why we continue to do this show. And I think this entire conversation today has been fascinating. By the way, thank you very much, Crimson Tinted, for that call. We appreciate it, and we appreciate all of our callers here on Limit Break Radio. Limit Break Radio is not just an opportunity for us to voice our opinions about this game. It's an opportunity for you to voice your opinions about it as well. And we hope that you guys take that opportunity to make your voice heard, because we do know that Square Enix does listen to the show. It is someone's job that they have to listen to the show, I think. So, make Square Enix do their job, because we can't make them, develop compelling content that we want. We can make them listen to your opinions on a podcast. So, make sure that you take the opportunities that you are presented with to make your opinion heard, whether it's on your own Twitch stream, whether it's on a show like this, whether it's on a forum. And I think that Joe's suggestion of voting with your feet, knowing the power of your dollar, and knowing exactly the worth that brings, to a game like FF14 that has a subscription model. Everyone who pays that subscription, even though they're not compelled with the content, sends a very confusing message to Square Enix and makes them think that they can get away away with not trying as hard with their content development. That, I think, is the answer to that at the end of the day.
Exactly, man. That's like, it's so crazy as a streamer to say like, hey man, I don't want to play the new hype, fancy, flashy, light up video game because everybody's going to play it. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like, I have the decision to decide to promote a game or decide to play a game and show other people that it's worth playing by broadcasting it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's crazy. If you look at different video games followings and different video games communities on Twitch, you can see somewhat of how healthy the community is based off of how many people watch it on Twitch.
Yes, and I think that that's actually a very good litmus for how engaged a community is overall in the game that they're playing. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, so you'll see a game like quote unquote BDO that might not have as many players and it quadruples the amount of viewers that Final Fantasy 14 has.
RuneScape having more viewers than FF14 does.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Joe, thank you so much for coming on today and talking about your adventures in lands other than Eorzea. By the way, check out Joe at his channel, twitch.tv/JoeNeverFails, where you can get the lowdown on all of the awesome BDO stuff that he's been doing, as well as his other adventures in MMOs. So, Joe, thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Yo, thank you guys so much for having me. It's always a pleasure,
dude. It's always great to talk to you, and it's always great to have you on the show. And you know, seriously, all the best to you and your streaming endeavors, man.
Thank you, man. I'm going to be playing. I'm actually going to be diving into taking a short trip back to SWTOR. Diving back into I think we're going to play some Guild Wars 2. I've never played that one before, so I'm going to check out what's going on in that game before I take a quick jump back to some Final Fantasy for the next patch, and then I might play some WoW after that. So this is like the perfect little transition into next of what's going on for me too. So I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Are you going to check out the Somerset Isles?
This is the tough thing is I have a level 50 177 CP Imperial Dragon Knight on PS4.
Yeah,
and I don't have a PC account for ESO.
Oh,
so I'm gonna yeah, but it's okay because I'm gonna wait to get everything that I have planned out of the way, and then I'm gonna dive into and probably start a guild on PC for ESO.
Nice.
And then like really devote a couple of weeks and months to that game.
Nice.
Because I have to, dude. It's too much fun it's really too much fun. I wish I could transfer my account, but I can't.
Oh, I know, right? That's killer. I can't believe that they don't allow, like, that game's not cross-platform.
Yeah,
that's crazy to me.
Oh my god. Well, that's because I have enough connections high enough in that game at Bethesda, because like I've worked for them a couple times and I've done some cool stuff. They've asked me to stream the game a couple times, and I know the guys that could do it if it was possible, which sucks because they can't.
Yeah. Oh man, that sucks. But Joe, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. It was a lot of fun having you on. Again, twitch.tv/JoeNeverFails. Go follow him, hang out with him. He's a good dude and definitely worth supporting. That's going to be it for today's Limit Break Radio. Thanks guys for hanging out with us. This was a fun show. This was a really good discussion. And you know, for all of the wailing and gnashing of teeth that MMO communities do about other MMOs, I think that it's definitely worth taking yourself out of your comfort zone and out of your context and going and playing another game and figuring out, like Joe was talking about, through what you like and what you don't like about other games, figuring out what is good about the main game that you're playing. I think that's always worth doing.
We didn't even get to touch on the Pokemon game that exists within World of Warcraft, Nero.
Oh, you mean Bless? But yeah, to be really honest, like one of the biggest truths I think is out there real quick is like, it literally doesn't matter what I think.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what I think ever. If you listen to anything that I say or any other content creator, it doesn't matter what any content creator thinks, because that might not be your opinion. And
absolutely,
that's the most important thing. Is it's all about what you think. It's all about what you believe as a player. And just because I have a different opinion doesn't mean that it's a bad game. So
absolutely, it's your experience. It's your sub money. It's your investment at the end of the day. So
it's my life. Now on
Stop it. No. All right, we gotta wrap this up.
There's Juxta's contribution to the show.
All right,
There were a couple
guys.
drops.
Yeah, right? Like, what were you even doing in
Well,
this
when
episode?
did Juxta play for this?
Like, Juxta plays fucking WoW more than any of us, and he's just sitting over there silent the whole fucking episode.
I heard some drops, man.
You guys had it under control. You were talking.
That's your penis.
Oh my god. All right, guys, that's going to be it. Thanks so much for joining us for Limit Break Radio. Stick around. We're going to send a host out to Checkpoint Radio coming up next for the re-air of the Checkpoint Radio show. Make sure you follow us over at twitch.tv/Checkpoint Radio. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure you head on over to our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Limit Break Radio. You can join us on Sundays when we go live for episodes of this very show. That's going to be it. I want to thank again our special host, JoeNeverFails. You can check him out over at twitch.tv/JoeNeverFails. And of course, my crew, Kahlo, Juxta, and Nika. I'm Aniro. Keep listening. Radio is a production of LimitBreakRadio.com and Bender Media Productions. This episode was produced by Kahlo Landis, Juxtaposition, and Kooky Persona. Final Fantasy XIV and Eorzea are trademarks of Square-Enix. Funding for Limit Break Radio is provided by Miri Kennett, Nexian Theta, Hirsch Firsch, Tulane Vera, and fellow Limit Break Radio listeners. To support Limit Break Radio, visit patreon.com/Limit Break Radio. Opening music in this episode from Daniel Lambie. Listen to Man with the Machine Gun and other great tracks at facebook.com/Daniel Lambie Metal Gamer. Closing music in this episode provided by Husky by the Geek. Listen to this and other great Final Fantasy XIV and video game rock covers and original music at facebook.com/Husky by the Geek. In-game graphics for Limit Break Radio's Twitch stream are provided by Diamond Multimedia. Check out their line of AMD graphics cards and other hardware at diamondmm.com. Limit Break Radio and its hosts are solely responsible for its content.